one historically tied to Moscow. Father John's daughter, Catherine, who happens to be national co-chair of the Young Republicans, joined Orthodox Christian clergy last November to lobby Trump administration officials and members of Congress. The delegation complained about the persecution of the Moscow-linked church in Ukraine. But nothing was said about the scores of Ukrainian clerics killed at the hands of the Russian army. Lots of little Wellington boots.
Yeah, I recognize my grandkids' boots there.
Father John has driven us out of Houston to a farm to meet some of his parishioners and their children, who are all homeschooled. So this is a really big kitchen with quite a lot of kids, and we're just coming out onto the terrace.
The homeschool co-op goes on field trips periodically. They usually meet at our church once a week, but occasionally they'll go to some place like this, to a park or to a monastery that's about an hour away, and let the kids do something different.
What's the importance of homeschooling?
You can use the textbooks you want, and also you can teach them about your faith, and they don't get taught about transgenderism or the 57 genders of the month or whatever. And so it's a way of protecting your children, but also because our parish family is very closely connected, they get together, so that allows the children to interact with other kids and not just stay home with the mom all week.
Father John introduces me to Ashley, one of the convert mums here, wearing a flowing skirt and flowery kerchief.
My job is to educate my children.
So before you had children, what did you do?
I was a corporate trainer.
It must have been quite a big change.
It was a big change.
And why did you think that Orthodoxy would suit you?
The connection to the past, we're surrounded by things in the church that date all the way back to the time of Christ, and that kind of connection is really compelling.
And what about the moral values? Father John's talking about genders. Was that something that concerned you?
My position and our family's position has always been, we don't hate people that believe those things. We pray for them. We love them as, humans.
It's just that lifestyle is contrary to nature, and it's very self-destructive, and people get sucked into it. But the way to help them is to teach them the truth and to teach them to live according to God's natural order.
Father John's views are mirrored by countless others I've met and listened to online, like Father Joseph Gleason.
And when you look in Scripture and when you look in history, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. And one of the things that bothered me most was how they were more and more accepting of LGBT and transgender and all these terrible things.
But there's one big difference. Father Joseph isn't speaking on this podcast from the US. He now lives in a village north of Moscow. A few years back, he upped sticks and moved to Russia with his wife and 6 children.
Russia does not have homosexual marriage. It does not have civil unions. And of course, I absolutely love the 1,000-year history of Orthodox Christianity here.
This wispy-bearded Texan, an Orthodox priest, is in the vanguard of a movement urging conservatives to relocate to Russia. In 2024, Putin introduced a fast-track shared values visa for those fleeing Western liberalism. And unsurprisingly, perhaps, this spiritual asylum campaign is fronted by a former Russian spy who did time in an American prison. But that's another story. That's all from Assignment. I'm Lucy Ash. The producer was Linda Presley.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this...
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown in our CBC studios in Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's really slick out there in the city. We're still in a situation where the streets have been scraped, but in a lot of places not sanded. So probably slow down, especially as you're approaching intersections. There's lots of sliding going on. Today in the city, a high of -4. It's going to be significantly warmer than it's been the last few days here. Thanks for joining us wherever you're listening from in Manitoba. Let's say hi to the team. Corey Funk is directing the show and covering your commute. Abby Adiyemi is our senior tech and covers weather on the air. And then good morning to Darren Marash, who's also in Studio 15 with Abby in our control room. Darren's the producer of our YouTube stream. You can watch the show live. We're on air till 8:37 a.m. And once again, thanks for joining. In Brandon, mix of sun and cloud today, some risk of freezing drizzle. Your high is going to be right around 0, but it'll feel a little colder with wind chill. And then in Thompson, a high of -14, mix of sun and cloud as well. But once again, wind chill is going to be like -33 up there, so frosty. Heather Wells, what's happening in news, and good morning.
Good morning. Yes, some cycling advocates are furious with a plan to scrap temporary bike lanes on Wellington Crescent in favor of new permanent bike lanes. Councillor Janice Lukes says a new city report shows the temporary approach would only slightly improve safety, but she admits it won't be ready for more than a year. A new city plan would force drivers to ease up on the gas on residential streets in Winnipeg. Councillor Janice Lukes again says she supports that idea to reduce the default speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour from 50. She says she gets constant calls from people wanting traffic calming in their neighborhoods. We'll hear more from her in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
That has been an ongoing conversation for a very long time in our city. So we're also going to dip into it on the show this morning. In addition, we have some personal stories coming up. We're going to talk to a retired teacher who's living with prostate cancer. After 35 years of helping kids, his former students have now stepped up to help him. So we're going to hear that story. But we're also going to hear some concerns that he has about where he's going to be accessing treatment. And a local hockey writer here in Winnipeg has weighed in on Connor Hellebuyck and President Donald Trump's presidential medal being awarded to him. Some Winnipeggers with mixed reactions, so we'll hear that.
On Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey in for Tom Power. Candy Staten has been a gospel prodigy, a Southern soul powerhouse, and a disco icon. Now, at 85, she's back with her Grammy-nominated album, Back to My Roots. She'll be here to talk about faith, resilience, and still singing after 7 decades.
Hang on in there, brother. Q. This morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Hillary Clinton is being questioned under oath today in Chappaqua, New York. It's a closed-door deposition about her knowledge of the Jeffrey Epstein network after a bipartisan push to compel her testimony. For the latest on the hearing, we turn to Willie Lowry in our Washington bureau. Willie, the Clintons have been very vocal lately about wanting this to be a public hearing. Why is the committee insisting on a private
from the beginning that the deposition process takes place behind closed doors and that the committee will publish video testimony only after the hearing concludes. That did not sit well with the Clintons, who campaigned for weeks to make the whole process public. Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and First Lady, said on social media earlier this month, quote, "Let's stop the games. If you want this fight, Rep. James Comer, let's have it in public. You love to talk about transparency. There's nothing more transparent than a public hearing, cameras on." The Clintons had hoped to avoid testifying, but were compelled after Congress threatened to hold them in contempt.
Okay, well, that's the background. What do we know about the focus of today's questioning?
On the surface, the committee's goal is to uncover information about Jeffrey Epstein's network. Former President Bill Clinton is mentioned thousands of times in the Epstein files, including photos of him on Epstein's private plane with an unidentified woman sitting on his lap and another of him relaxing in a pool with another unidentified person near him. The Clintons have denied any wrongdoing and are not accused of any, but both Republicans and Democrats want answers.
I'm going to be asking them names. From the beginning, we've been asking them for names of people that engaged in the trafficking and the assault of minors. That is the sole focus, I think, and point of this investigation. Also, if there is any other criminal misconduct and wrongdoing.
I want to hear if he has any information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his associates, about co-conspirators, and certainly if he's familiar with any of the sort of how Jeffrey Epstein was able to accumulate so much wealth.
That was Republican Representative Ana Paulina Luna and Democratic Representative Robert Garcia. Hillary Clinton testifies today, Bill Clinton tomorrow.
Willie Lowry, DNR Washington Bureau. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
Iran and the United States are deep in another round of negotiations in Geneva, and the stakes are high. In his State of the Union address on Tuesday, Trump did not rule out an attack on Iran. The U.S. has been deploying guided missiles, fighter jets, and combat vessels to the Middle East. But today, Iran's foreign minister is signaling his country is open to diplomacy. And President Masoud Pezeshkian says that Tehran has already committed to one demand. He says both he and the Ayatollah are clear Iran will not have nuclear weapons at all, but Tehran is signaling it will not give up its right to peaceful nuclear technology. Cuba says it's killed 4 people aboard a Florida-registered speedboat in what it calls terrorist infiltration attempt. Officials in Havana say the group opened fire on Cuban soldiers first. Now Washington is conducting its own investigation into the deadly encounter. For more on the U.S. response, let's go to Kate Fisher in Washington. Kate, what do we know about the people aboard this vessel?
Well, Cuba has said, and this is where we're getting most of our information from, that the speedboat was registered in Florida, but that it was carrying 10 armed individuals who they believe intended to carry out an infiltration for terrorist purposes. This is from the Cuban Interior Ministry. They said on the boat they found assault rifles, handguns, improvised explosive devices, bulletproof vests, and camouflage gear. So essentially they're saying that these were Cuban nationals living in the United States who were trying to infiltrate the Cuban mainland, and that 4 of them were killed, 6 were wounded, and that they were being treated for their wounds in Cuba.
And Kate, all this happening against the backdrop of increased tensions between Cuba and the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just had the United States go into Venezuela and capture Nicolas Maduro, the leader of that country. After that happened, Donald Trump said, that he believes that now the Cuban regime could fall, and has even suggested that Cuba could be next. This really could potentially ignite a further diplomatic crisis between the US and Cuba, who already have highly strained relations.
Kate Fisher in Washington. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is leaving for his trip to India today. He's hoping to hammer out new trade deals that will help diversify Canada's economy. The trip comes after years of choppy relations between the two countries. While officials on both sides are optimistic about a new trade relationship, some in Canada are questioning this reset. JP Tasker reports.
Given what had happened in the last 2 years, this is a big reset.
India's High Commissioner to Canada, Dinesh Patnaik, says the two countries are turning the page on an era of bilateral bad blood. Past allegations that Indian agents were involved in the murder of a Canadian Sikh are being put aside, as Prime Minister Mark Carney pursues a free trade agreement with the world's most populous country.
I'm confident that given the intent on both sides, both Prime Ministers are very keen to do it.
Patnaik says a comprehensive economic agreement could come together quickly, with Carney getting some valuable FaceTime with his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, on this 5-day visit.
We are looking at 1 year, but I have a feeling it will be faster.
Some Sikh activists, meanwhile, are raising red flags about normalizing relations. BC Sikh leader Moninder Singh was warned by police last weekend he faces a credible threat to his life, and he suspects it comes from Indian agents.
I think in the wake of all that, we're going to India to reward them with trade deals. I think nothing could be a bigger slap in the face of the people that are under risk.
Still, federal officials say India is a hugely attractive market for Canadian companies and a key piece to the puzzle as the country tries to urgently diversify trade away from the U.S. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Alberta's provincial government is tabling its budget today. The oil-rich province posted a deficit last year, its first one since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And Premier Danielle Smith is signaling some tough decisions will have to be made again this year.
Alberta, like other jurisdictions in Canada and around the world, has been facing challenges ranging from trade disruptions to supply chain issues to volatile commodities markets. This year, we're dealing with a significant deficit resulting from the twin pressures of low energy prices and near record high population growth.
But Smith is promising greater investment in some sectors. Yesterday, she announced more than $10 billion for education funding and a 22% increase for doctors' pay. New data from the Canadian Institute of Health Information shows a worrying trend in long-term care homes. On average, 1 in 4 residents is being given strong sedative drugs without a specific medical reason. Health advocates say it's a persistent problem that needs immediate intervention. The CBC's Tashana Reid has the story.
The numbers haven't been trending the right way.
Andrea Phobel is a research manager with the Canadian Institute for Health Information in Ottawa. Their latest report says 24% of long-term care residents in Canada received an antipsychotic medication without a psychological diagnosis.
So often we turn to those antipsychotics far too quickly.
It's an issue Roslyn Compton has seen in Saskatoon. She's the executive director of Better LTC, a nonprofit that supports seniors.
And often it's because either not enough staff, not enough one-on-one.
Antipsychotic medications for disorders like schizophrenia are sometimes used to address symptoms like aggression in patients with dementia. But there are risks.
Increased risk of falls, increased risk of fractures, increase in frailty because they're not up and moving around.
In 2024 to 2025, provincial rates of potentially inappropriate use of antipsychotics was high, ranging from 20% to 36% in some provinces. Last year, the Appropriate Use Coalition, a group of Canadian health organizations, set a national target for long-term care homes of 15% or less.
It just shows that this is a persistent problem, and I'm glad that
Dr. Samir Sinha is a geriatrician at Sinai Health in Toronto.
And it represents a lot more work that we need to be doing to make sure that we're appropriately prescribing.
Health experts say reviewing medications every 3 months and specialized care to manage behaviors can make a difference. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. A reminder, of course, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. And there's a good one top of the page this hour from our Mike Crawley in Washington. The headline, Which Trump Tariffs Affect Canada Now? News you can use, cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio. Darren and Abby and Corey all in, as well as Heather Wells in our news department. Thanks for being with us on CBC to start your Thursday. Or as we like to call it, Junior Friday around here. You can keep that one. It's from Abby. In the weather situation, it's going to be warmer down south today. It's going to be colder up north today. Speaking of Abby, he'll have that full forecast in just a moment. We also are going to talk about Gen Z and how to get that generation moving. A data scientist at Participaction has been looking at their latest report, and there are increased challenges with people not feeling like they're confident enough to attend exercise classes. And there's not enough sort of learned exercise or recreational exercise around there to choose from for people to become more active. So we're going to hear more about that. Also this hour on the show, the latest on the meeting between officials in Ottawa and representatives from OpenAI as we've learned more about what may have preceded the tragedy in Tumbler Ridge. So stay tuned for all of that. Here's local headlines now with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg doctor wishes the province was doing more to warn people about a growing outbreak of hepatitis A. Dr. Glenn Drobot has only seen a handful of cases of Hep A in the past 20 years, but he's seen 4 more in just the past 2 months, and then was surprised to learn there have been more than 300 cases across the province. Hep A is an acute liver infection that can cause nausea and jaundice, so we'll hear more about that. Also, Winnipeg Transit is proposing changes to 3 downtown bus routes. The plan is to revise the D16, D18, and D19 starting in June. Transit's goal is to make it easier for people to get downtown. We're going to hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, Heather and Abby, how slippery was it out there?
Oh, my.
Heather?
Yeah, you know what? There is a little fishtailing, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I found it was just still really icy on Portage Avenue as well. Yeah, Abby, you too?
I did some fishtailing also this morning.
Okay. So Corey's going to be in a moment. He's just checking highways and such to see what's going on out there. Weather-wise, though, I don't know if it's going to melt today or not. We're going to come close.
Yeah, we will come close, but talking about conditions, it's still going to be a messy one to start your day. Some regions are actually getting freezing drizzle this morning along with light snow.
visit.
That's
This
tracking
after
across
President
the
Trump was
southern
heard
parts of the
joking he'd
province,
be
while up north, it still remains, most of the regions remain in the dangerous deep freeze. So take into consideration there's a risk of a frostbite in play today. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're looking at temperatures around minus 14 to minus 17 at this time, depending on where you are. Cloudy skies, morning temperatures just going to hover around minus 23. Then you just need to watch out for risk of that freezing drizzle that might come and go this morning, depending on where you are in the city. We warm up to about minus 4 later. You will notice some light winds. And then across the southern regions, Gimli currently tracking minus 22 at this time with mist and freezing drizzle, but that should settle to about 0 and minus 4 later. Then up north, we're seeing temperatures, some regions getting minus 25, some regions in the north getting minus 33. And of course, when you talk about the wind chill, we're looking at a sharp wind chill of around minus 38 at this time, and then it might even get to minus 42 in the afternoon period for regions in the northern part of the province, though this will not really give any relief for today. But down south, Winnipeg, we're hovering around minus 14 to minus 17, and we'll warm up to minus 4 later in today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is in to tell us a bit about the drive.
You guys are talking about fishtailing, all these things, but I don't know, for me, the run-in was quite lovely, actually.
Look at him.
Yeah,
the gloating active commuter. And so you should. We're going to have an activity conversation this half hour, so you're the healthiest of all of us.
And, it was lovely, actually, because it snowed last night, but actually the sidewalks through Wolseley, West Broadway, all perfectly plowed the whole way through. So city was on it. But other than that, I haven't heard of any issues here in the city. The worst highways, according to Manitoba 501, look like the area around 59, kind of north of when you head north of Selkirk there, but also kind of between 59 and Lac de Bonnie. Those are being reported as covered. So careful if you're on the highways around there today. But if you have any other updates for me, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call. Those numbers 204-788-3093.
Well, let's start this show revisiting some of the complicated reaction to Connor Hellebuyck. And it's been a week of joy, but also a mixed reaction for the Winnipeg Jets goalie Connor Hellebuyck when it comes to how fans and Winnipeggers are watching what's been developing. So let's start with this. Tuesday night, he was honored by President Donald Trump during the State of the Union address.
Because I've never seen a goaltender play as well as goalie Connor Hellebuyck.
U.S. President Donald Trump and his praises for Winnipeg Jets goalie, who was part of the Team USA, of course, during the Olympics. He stopped 41 shots in the gold medal game against Canada. Now, that same night during State of the Union, the president announced that he will give Connor Hellebuyck the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Trevor Alexander's a writer for Hockey Blog in Canada. He joined Faith Fundal to discuss what that moment means for Winnipeg hockey fans and also some of the reaction to some of the other things that had happened around Team USA's women's team and a phone call with Team USA and Donald Trump.
Why are some fans unhappy about Donald Trump's intention to give Connor Hellebuyck the nation's highest civilian honor in the U.S.?
Well, I mean, I think it comes from the fact that who's giving it as opposed to what it's being given for. Obviously, there have been presidents before this, and certainly there'll be presidents after this who can hand out this Medal of Freedom at any time they like to anybody who they like. But I think it comes down to people are viewing the person giving it as sort of the overall sort of tone that they're putting on this. Frankly, I mean, again, it's an award that's basically given to anybody at any time by the president. So I don't really know if we should be holding this in any sort of contempt because, again, Connor Hellebuyck played a heck of a game. He certainly stood on his head in that gold medal game, and he kind of broke a long drought for the U.S. when it came to winning a gold medal in men's hockey. So obviously, again, there's some political elements behind it, but at the end of the day, though, I think most of the commenters that Matt spoke to are right. Like, we should probably take the politics out of this one and just look at it as, here's the honor that Connor Hellebuyck has received.
How much weight would you give? One of the phrases I saw was Connor Hellebuyck cares when he's in the gold medal game, but when he's back in Winnipeg, he doesn't seem to care as much. How much weight would you give that?
Well, I mean, there's one thing to play for country. There's another thing to play for a team that might not make the playoffs this year. Right now, it looks like they won't make the playoffs this year. And it's hard because, I mean, you hear him, he kind of came out and said that he was going to take the day off today and sort of get himself, back into the swing of things and mentally prepare himself to come back and play in the NHL again. And you go, come on, man, like you're a professional. But at the end of the day, though, he is correct. I mean, he was under the microscope for 2 straight weeks. I mean, he had to play well. If he didn't, he probably wouldn't be, getting the award that he got in terms of the honor he got there yesterday. But at the end of the day, I mean, again, you got to gear up for the last 25 games of the season and really get yourself set for that if you're going to make a push for the playoffs. And the Jets are in that position where they're going to need Connor Hellebuyck every night if they're going to make a legitimate shot at making the playoffs this year.
What about Kyle Connor? I mean, he declined the invitation to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump. Is it fair for fans to apply the same judgment for him compared to Hellebuyck?
I mean, to each their own, I think, in this whole situation. I know that there were other players that opted out as well. There were 5 total American hockey players who decided not to go to the White House. To each their own. Again, some of those guys are from Minnesota, where we saw all sorts of political unrest in terms of what was going on down there, and they opted not to go. We saw, obviously Kyle Connor come back, and he mentioned how he just was focused on getting back into the swing of things and needed to get back with his teammates and get things going again. I mean, he hadn't played for almost 2 weeks because he didn't play a lot of the Olympics. So for him, maybe it was a chance to sort of get back into playing a little bit of hockey and getting his legs going again, certainly getting ready for, like I said, the last 25 games of the season here. But, I mean, again, I don't hold it against anybody in terms of their decision. There were obviously an entire team of American women who decided not to go to the White House as well. So there are reasons for that. Everybody has their own individual reasons. Whether or not they want to discuss them is up to them. I don't think that anybody should hold the decision to go, especially when we have a different sense of what it means to be, patriotic than what Americans might have. I mean, everybody kind of knows that that's going to be the phone call to go to the White House at that point. So regardless of what we think and regardless of what Canadians think, I mean, there's a different sense of patriotism in the U.S. than what we see up here. And Connor Hellebuyck decided that he was going to practice his own patriotism by going to the White House, I guess.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because when you look at the Olympics, it's country versus country. In the history of Olympic Games, it is a very political kind of sporting event, right? Do you think there is a place for that kind of thing in the NHL / in the regular season?
Well, I mean, they do actually give. I mean, again, I don't think it should happen during the regular season by any means. I mean, you shouldn't just be randomly inviting teams to the White House by any means, but I mean, we see it every year after the Stanley Cup that if an American team wins, they usually get invited to the White House at that point. And we've seen, the Florida Panthers go the last couple of years. We've seen Tampa Bay go, when they were winning Stanley Cups. Like, it happens at least once a year that an NHL team usually ends up at the White House for a specific reason, because they've won or because, whatever. But at the end of the day, again, I'm not saying that we should be worrying about the politics as much as we understand that it's a political, in some cases, a political statement. Certainly, like you said, the Olympics do have their own lines of politics that they sort of follow, whether it be, other countries, our country, whatever's going on at that point. Again, this appearance yesterday, I think, was more of just, hey, come and be honored, and, we'll give you a chance to show off those gold medals a little bit. Again, there are political overtones to it. I'm not going to lie about it. But at the end of the day, though, when it comes down to how I view this, I think, again, Connor Hellebuyck wasn't going out there and, pledging allegiance to any of the, maybe the corruption or anything we see there. But at the end of the day, he's there just to be honored in terms of the accomplishment that he made at that point in Italy.
How long is Canadian hockey fans' memory?
I mean, we still hear about the Summit Series in '72, right? So, I mean, we don't forget about hockey moments. I mean, this is a hockey moment. I'm not going to lie about this, and certainly people will talk about the Americans who've gone down there. I know that, again, Brady Tkachuk is taking a beating in Ottawa right now because of some of his comments, and that's the difference. I think is that, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck didn't go down there and make outlandish statements. He didn't go down there and try and win political points with anybody. He went down there to legitimately celebrate the accomplishment of his team and what Team USA did over in Italy. And sure, he was bestowed with an additional honor that I don't think he asked for. I don't think he was expecting. But at the end of the day, though, He's coming back to Winnipeg, and he's coming back with, I guess, an extra medal now, and he legitimately should be celebrated for his accomplishments. Again, we can try and throw all the political sort of backlash at him that we want, but at the end of the day, he's still a Winnipeg Jet. We still want him here. We still need him to win. So, I mean, should we really be that angry at him? I don't know if we should.
That's Trevor Alexander, writer for Hockey Blog in Canada, speaking with CBC's Faith Fundal. It is going to be very interesting to see how Connor Hellebuyck's received in Vancouver when the Jets play Vancouver. I think that's tonight's game, but also when he's back in Winnipeg to play with the Jets. I'm going to read some comments a little later in the show at 6:40. I had one of our regular listeners who's actually contributed on the air before as well. He's actually a dual citizen, U.S. and Canada, and he was weighing in on Hellebuyck. So I'll get to that a little bit later. And of course, I think the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of comments about is, yes, the presidential medal, but also Winnipeggers not appreciating the men's team's reaction and Hellebuyck in the room when FBI Director Kish Patel was in the room as well, and then they were throwing the champagne around after the game, and then Trump called and made this quote-unquote joke about the gold medal winning U.S. women's team, and, I'm going to have to invite them as well, and then everyone laughed. It was very much and I'm going to speak personally here, just an old boys club locker room moment on an egregious scale like this, to see a president and an adult men's team, that the Olympic men's team for the U.S. Reacting in that way, I think also struck a lot of people terribly, to say the least. And so now I'm not speaking personally. I'm taking my hat off. Maybe you think that's not right. Maybe you think that we're all overblowing this. We should all just welcome Connor Hellebuyck back and be happy for the men's team. That moment wasn't a big deal, and that's fine. But I want to hear from you. 788-3205.
The fire hose of news from America can feel like a lot these days.
If you're trying to figure out what to make of it all, we got you.
I'm Katie Simpson.
And I'm Paul Hunter. We're correspondents here in Washington,
working just around the corner from where much of the action is taking place.
2 blocks from the White House.
And that's the name of our new podcast.
For top-notch analysis of U.S. politics from a Canadian perspective, find 2 blocks from the White House on CBC Listen and wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's get to this new report from Participation. It says young adults in Canada, age 18 to 27, feel more barriers to physical activity than other generations. Social pressure, low motivation, environmental factors all weighing in. Marcus Duncan is a data scientist with Participation. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I just actually want to start with the social pressures that Gen Z is experiencing. What are they?
Yeah, from our survey, we find that Gen Z is experiencing a lack of self-confidence. They're worried about being embarrassed or judged from others. And they have real concerns about their body image, weight, and fitness. And these are acting as barriers to helping them get active and stay active.
And those are barriers that, as I described, would be seen as different from the past?
Well, they're more salient and more relevant for this generation. We see that while millennials express them to an extent, it's not quite at the same level as the Gen Z. And later in life, we see a shift towards more issues about time commitment and work commitments as being barriers to being physically active.
So it's not necessarily different from generations past at that age, although maybe because of social media and images being everywhere now in a different way. But it's when you get older, you have a different view on things.
Yeah, I think social media would absolutely have an impact. We know that it impacts people's mental health, and it really does present sort of an idealized version of what physical activity and being active looks like. So if that's what you're comparing yourself against, then it can be very easy to sort of build these internal self-barriers and doubts.
So what are we setting ourselves up for then? Like, what's the concern about how a lack of activity when someone is young, how could that affect the Gen Z later in life?
Yeah, so we know that physical activity tracks across the lifespan. The habits that we develop early in life tend to follow us later in life. And by learning to overcome barriers and get active now, it's something that serves us later in life for trying to remain active. And we know that while being physically active when you're young has benefits later in life in terms of cardiovascular disease and reducing the risk of cancer, it's also just good to be active throughout the lifespan, not just when you're young, because there's major benefits to our health and well-being, including reduced risk of depression, and also still, getting those cardiovascular and other health benefits when we're active across the lifespan and not just when we're young.
Beyond, one of the things you highlighted in social factors was social pressures was body image, but that wasn't the only one. You also talked about sort of being motivated to do this and not feeling judged. What's it like when a Gen Zer is looking for someone to be active with?
Yeah, finding that they are or thinking that they have nobody to be active with is a major barrier for Gen Z, and at a much higher rate than other generations. And so, physical activity buddy systems or, beginner groups are a great way to meet people who are, trying to get active like you are, but maybe aren't the experts that will make you feel judged or like that you're dragging the group down.
It's interesting about that whole dragging the group down, because I was sort of reading some of what you guys have looked at in your report, and there's this concept of being worried about whether you're doing things quote unquote directly. Does that speak to just a different level of anxiety? Because I mean that to some extent, there's an acceptance that no one's going to do anything correctly when you're at first enter an exercise class or a new sport. But is that something that's really holding Gen Z back from participating in a different way than other generations?
I think it's something that can be experienced across the generations. I mean, there's definitely as you get later in life, you maybe have additional confidence. But I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Is you show up at a gym for the first time in a while and you see other people sort of going about their business and they look like they know what they're doing. And, if you are just trying to figure things out, that can be really a daunting experience.
What are some of the solutions to get the younger generation moving specifically then that you think might help here?
So it's a situation where we need a whole society approach to reduce barriers and help make room to move for people in Canada, and because a rising tide lifts all boats. So these are, while these are more common in Gen Z and millennials, addressing these barriers has benefits across the society. And things like, making sure that there's easy entry points, like trial groups, small beginner-oriented groups at recreation centers, and even, building opportunities to develop mastery rather than focusing on performance. So, recreation leagues and, learn to play pickleball types of activities to help people find something that they enjoy and
can connect
feel
with.
good about.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Marcus Duncan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Marcus Duncan, a data scientist with Participaction. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:31, it is -14, mostly cloudy. There is a risk of freezing drizzle this morning, maybe even some fog out there, and mild later today, a high of -4. A Winnipeg doctor wishes the province was doing more to warn people about a growing outbreak of hepatitis A. Dr. Glenn Drobot is an internal medicine specialist. He saw only a handful of cases of Hep A in the past 20 years, but he's seen 4 more in just the past 2 months and was surprised to learn there have been more than 300 cases across the province.
As a frontline physician, I just haven't seen a lot of information about this. I was surprised when I heard about this in the late fall last year, and I think physicians, members of the public need to know more that this is happening in our province right now.
The acute liver infection can cause nausea and jaundice. It can spread through food and drinking water contaminated with feces from an infected person. A spokesperson tells CBC the province is working to keep people informed about prevention and response measures, including contact tracing and immunization. Some cycling advocates are furious with a plan to scrap temporary bike lanes on Wellington Crescent in favor of permanent ones. Councillor Janice Luke says a New City report shows the temporary approach would only slightly improve safety, but it would also disrupt traffic and look cluttered, she says. Lucky Adams was among a handful of protesters at City Hall with a banner reading, "Whose kid is next?"
She's making a promise that it'll come next year by breaking a promise that she already made that it was coming this spring. We can't trust her when she says it's going to come next year and it's going to be permanent and it's going to be great. They've had a plan for well over a year of what the temporary bike lane project would look like, and now they're canceling it.
Adams says the plastic posts and paint for temporary lanes would help Winnipeggers visualize how they would like the permanent structure to look. The downtown Winnipeg Biz hopes proposed new changes make it easier for people to take a bus to the area. Winnipeg Transit is calling for revisions to 3 routes. It comes as a recent survey shows a majority of respondents are not happy with the city's new transit network. Downtown Biz CEO Kate Fensky is glad the city's listening.
This survey is going to give us a benchmark. So as the city makes changes on the upcoming routes, and especially the bigger changes in the summer, we can go back and ask transit users that are coming downtown, how are things going now? And hopefully we'll see improvement on these numbers.
The plan aims to bring buses closer to the Winnipeg Clinic and Graham Avenue. It would mean changes to the D16, D18, and D19 routes. If approved by the Public Works Committee, those changes would take effect in June. A new city plan could force drivers to ease up on the gas on Winnipeg's residential streets. Councillor Janice Luke supports the idea to reduce the default speed limit to 40 kilometres an hour from 50. The plan could also affect some collector streets. Luke says she gets constant calls for traffic calming in neighborhoods that are densely populated.
Just from the calls I continually get just in my ward alone and what I see coming through the Public Works Committee, there is an appetite to slow the speed down.
The idea will stall, though, without approval from the province. Before any speed limit can be lowered, the government will have to approve a change to the Highway Traffic Act. Prime Minister Mark Carney is leaving for India today for what officials from both countries describe as a potentially history-making trip. Years of frosty relations will be put aside as they work on a framework for a comprehensive trade deal. You can hear the latest on that story and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Winnipeg chiropractor who pleaded guilty to voyeurism has been given a conditional discharge. Robert Stitt was charged after hidden cameras disguised as sprinkler heads were found at Natural Wellness Chiropractic Center. CBC's Caitlin Garlick has the story.
8 patients secretly videotaped as they changed into gowns at their chiropractor's office, including one whose breasts were exposed. But court heard Wednesday chiropractor Robert Stitt installed those cameras because of issues with thefts and not for a sexual purpose. Stitt pleaded guilty to voyeurism in October for videos taken in late 2023 and early 2024, in a case the judge called an extraordinary mistake in judgment. Stitt's conditional discharge means he'll need to be on good behavior for the next year. He's still suspended and not allowed to practice as a chiropractor. The Manitoba Chiropractors Association says Stitt will now go through its disciplinary process. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, fresh off winning an Olympic gold with the U.S. men's hockey team.
To the front of the net, and Connor shoots and scores!
Kyle Connor on TSN in the first period in Vancouver as the Jets beat the Canucks in overtime 3-2. Cole Perfetti sealing that deal with that OT winner. Head coach Scott Arniel says a few players were a little bit rusty after that Olympic break.
There was some mistakes that you can tell were kind of from guys not playing, for a couple of weeks, and they were, they didn't have to really tell them when they came to the bench. They all recognized it.
The Jets stay on the West Coast, playing in Anaheim against the Ducks tomorrow night, and that again is a late start. Puck drop at 9 o'clock Central. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells live in our news center this morning at CBC. Here in Studio 15, it is me and the guys, Darren and Corey and Abby behind the glass. And Abby's going to give us our regional forecast now.
Yeah, Marcy, we're looking at a cloudy start with temperatures in the south ranging from -2 to -23 and much colder air dominating the northern part of the province with a biting wind chill close to -40. this morning. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're tracking temperatures around minus 14 at the Forks and minus 17 at the airport. Cloudy conditions we have. Fog patches spotted here and there. That should dissipate as you get into the morning. Expect a high today to be around minus 4 with light winds, though there's a risk of freezing drizzle as temperature hovers around minus 23 this morning. For the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at temperatures around minus 3 around Morden and surrounding communities this morning. A risk of freezing drizzle also in play there. That region warms up to minus 2 later today. For Brandon, we're tracking misty conditions, minus 9 at this time. Expect a slim chance of flurries today. You get to warm to 0. For the Parkland region around Dauphin, we're seeing temperatures around minus 15s and minus 16s. Mostly cloudy skies you have. Your high will be around minus 2. There's a slim chance of flurries later today. Gimli, good morning. You are chilly at minus 22 at this time. You warm up to minus 4 later. A risk of freezing drizzle also expected for the region. Now, with track conditions into the north, where we're seeing temperatures near minus 32 this morning. The powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at minus 23 there. Ice crystals in play, high around minus 11. Wind chill feels like minus 35 this morning. For Thompson, minus 31. You warm up to minus 14 later. Morning wind chill, we're tracking minus 33. And for Gillam, it's clear, but we have some freezing conditions there. Minus 35 at this time. You warm up to minus 18 with a biting wind chill of minus 39. Lynn Lake, we're seeing light snow there. Minus 24, high of minus 16. And for Tudulu Lake, we're seeing minus 28 there. Light snow falling, high minus 22. The wind chill also feels like minus 38. While finally in Churchill, we're seeing temperatures around minus 28 with ice crystals. You only warm up to minus 24 later today, and we'll see those wind chills switch to about minus 42 this morning for folks in the Churchill region, so which means that frostbite can occur in minutes. Overall, Marcy, it's more like cloudy conditions, light snow being spotted in the north with those dangerous wind chills, while down south, it's more of a cloudy conditions. At the Forks, currently minus 14.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey found kind of a tricky commute, maybe, but not necessarily in the city.
Yeah, it's the worst highways this morning kind of look to seem to be around Highway 59, kind of once you kind of get north, like along the lake there. But then going towards the 317, for example, to Lac de Bonnie, according to Manitoba 501, might be partly snow covered this morning. Here in the city, things we heard some anecdotes of you guys on the way in about some fishtailing a little bit here and there.
It was just slippery.
Yeah,
more
just a little
slippery than you thought. Yeah, so it caught me off guard a little.
Yeah, sidewalks, though, I can say, at least through the West Broadway area, they were actually very nicely plowed this morning. But haven't heard of any issues otherwise. If you do want to give me a call, though, let me know what you're seeing out there. Would love to hear from you. If you're walking, biking, driving, you can give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you very much, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, just before we turn our attention to what's happening in business news, something just came in. Mission Street is closed. All eastbound and west lanes of Mission between Archibald Street to McTavish closed for street construction, actually. So that's today. Looks like today only. So it starts at 6 o'clock. So it started already and it'll extend until 7 tonight. You're being asked to use alternate routes. 788-3093, though, as Corey said, if you have any other updates. And before we turn to business news, I have one comment to share that has come in. We were talking about Connor Hellebuyck earlier this hour, getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Donald Trump after winning gold with the Olympic hockey team and being there for the State of the Union this week. Rick Koss wrote in. Rick's been a contributor on our program, but he's been on citizen panels and such. Just want to also mention, because this is important, Rick's a dual citizen, so he's an American. Rick said, I think Connor Hellebuyck is fantastic, currently the best goalie in the world, and he is, quote, our guy. But worthy of the Presidential Medal of Freedom for winning goalie in one game in a team sport? No, I don't think so. This tarnishes the award, and it's just more of Trump's cheap theater. Look at the list of previous athletes to win it and tell me he's currently on a level with Jackie Robinson, John Wooden, or Bill Russell. Someday, maybe, Rick writes, but not after one game or one tournament. I don't think he should refuse it Oh, of course, I've just lost my view here. I don't think he should refuse it or give it back. Good for him, Rick writes. But let's keep it in perspective. So just a thought on this as we have had ongoing coverage of it. I thought I'd add that comment. Okay, it is time now for business news. 6:41 a.m. Thursday morning. Crystalie Ramlichan's here with our report. Hey, Crystalie.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So a new analysis shows people are still facing housing affordability challenges. Perhaps no surprise, but this is despite recent improvements. What else does this say?
Well, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says even though affordability challenges have eased in recent years, they are still at historic highs and have spread to other cities such as Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax. So the National Housing Agency says one of the key factors is the impact of labor mobility brought on by remote work during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has persisted even as the job market has changed. And CMHC says affordability started recovering slightly since 2023. There was improved affordability for home ownership and stabilization for renters, but affordability has eroded recently. So CMHC looks at factors such as whether incomes are keeping up with the cost of housing, if supply can meet demand, and if households have income left over after paying for essentials. And a decline in affordability can be even more tough for renters who generally have less discretionary income to overcome inflationary pressures. And of course, we've seen inflation, go up in the last couple of years. And, that means that their housing budgets are more easily compressed. So CMHC says while Canada continues to experience a housing crisis, affordability challenges are likely to continue to be a concern, even if they are expected to ease over time.
Let's move now to how businesses are reacting to new trade tensions, or I should say ongoing maybe. But this is around the upcoming review of CUSMA. What do we know now?
Yes, that's right. So Canadian business groups say trade uncertainty continues to linger ahead of the formal review of the trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico due this summer. However, they say there are some reasons for hope after the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to strike down global tariffs. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business says the ruling has changed the thinking around tariffs overall, even as separate sectoral tariffs remain in place for Canadian industries such as steel, aluminum, automobiles, lumber, and cabinetry. So even though the court's decision did not affect most Canadian exports, relief will be felt by small businesses that sell goods not covered by CUSMA, who were previously subject to a 35% levy. And the Canadian Chamber of Commerce says after meeting with U.S. and Mexican business community representatives, it appears all sides are still a little bit apart when it comes to details of the framework that would form a new renewed agreement. And the Chamber says Canadian businesses should be prepared for more threats and pressure from the U.S. administration to work towards a deal. And the Trump administration's top trade czar has said Canada will have to accept some level of higher tariff if it wants to reach a new trade deal with Washington.
And finally, a story that's quirky, but maybe not funny, because there's concern here. A man accidentally gained control of 7,000 robot vacuums?
Yes, that's right. It is, concerning. It's a little scary. There's a little bit of
What happened?
Positive at the end. But yeah, a software engineer was experimenting with how to steer his new DJI robot vacuum with a video game controller and found a way to sneak a peek into thousands of homes. So while building his own remote control app, he used an AI coding assistant to help reverse engineer how the robot communicated with DJI's remote cloud servers. But he soon discovered the same credentials that allowed him to see and control his own device also provided access to live camera feeds, microphone audio, and maps for thousands of other vacuums across 24 countries. So the back-end security bug exposed how the robots could have turned into surveillance tools in the wrong hands. But you know what? The man did not do that. He shared his findings with the outlet The Verge, which contacted DJI to report the flaw, and the company says the issue has now been resolved. But yeah, the incident underscores warnings from cybersecurity experts who have long cautioned that internet-connected robots and other smart home devices present attractive targets for hackers.
So interesting. All right, thanks a lot, Crystalie. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlakan with our business report. It's 6:46 a.m. Still ahead, Heather Wells will have the latest headlines for us on Information Radio, including more details about Winnipeg downtown biz, looking at how the city's new transit system is impacting the city's core. So we'll hear from Heather. Also, we want to mention that we have some photos up on my Facebook page from yesterday's live show at the Forks, which was just glorious. So we had a beautiful crisp winter day. Currently in Winnipeg, it is minus 14. It's going to be warmer today. We do have a risk of freezing drizzle, but our high is going to be around minus 4. It will feel more, though, like minus 15. Next on the show, disappointed. That's how Artificial Intelligence Minister Evan Solomon described his meeting this week with senior officials from the tech company OpenAI. The federal government had been seeking answers over the company's safety protocols, as we've been hearing in the news. Their questions in the meeting came after reports that OpenAI banned the Tumbler Ridge shooter from its ChatGPT platform months ago, but they did not flag concerns to police. Francis Sims covers tech issues for us, and he's here with more this morning via Zoom. Hi there, Francis.
Hi, good morning.
So the AI minister, as I mentioned, disappointed that they didn't have, quote, substantial answers, is what Evan Solomon said. What's your take on the aftermath of the meeting?
Sadly, I'm not surprised, but I imagine, I wasn't in the meeting, that the expectation was pretty high. They had ministers at the federal level. They had the head of policy from OpenAI, I think Chan Park, and then 6 other representatives. I would imagine the government was looking for OpenAI to come in and say, okay, this is what we've learned. These are the changes we're going to make to try to mitigate or prevent a disaster from this occurring again. By all accounts, that didn't happen. I think there were probably soft assurances, we'll look into it type messaging, but not this is what we're going to do, this is the action we're going to take. And so that's disappointing, but it's not surprising in that there is no disclosure law in Canada requiring these firms to report. It's all self-disclosure. And what that means is that it's opaque. We have no idea how they're making the decisions or whether or not they're making the right decision.
Which is so unusual because we talk about wanting better, better monitoring from the companies. And so if they monitor but don't have a duty to report, that becomes the area we have to really look at. So what do we know about how OpenAI handled the initial review then of the Tumbler Ridge shooter?
Yeah, it's incredibly tragic. What we know is that in June of last year, they OpenAI found that this user was rubbing up against its guardrails, potentially violating its terms of service. And so it flagged the user. And we don't know the details. Maybe the user was asking about how to commit violent acts. We're not sure. Either way, this reporting came through the Wall Street Journal. It went to the safety and trust team within OpenAI, and up to 12 individuals looked at the file, and they made 2 decisions. Ultimately, they decided that, yes, they were violating the terms of service, so they were going to ban the person from the platform, which they did. And 2, they didn't meet the internal threshold to report to law enforcement, which is some sort of imminent and credible threat. And as a result, the user was kicked off the platform. And then 8 months later, the tragedy occurred, and nobody knew that this conversation had been happening. And so it's really tragic because you imagine that if that person was handed off to a mental health professional or somebody else, that maybe they could have been supported, and this event may never have happened. We won't know, but that's where your mind starts to go to.
So you talked about the fact that a company like OpenAI in this country doesn't have a legal responsibility to report potential behavior, correct? Of someone who could be dangerous.
Yeah, although I'm not a lawyer, that's my understanding of the law. And in fact, the online harms bill, which was proposed just a few years ago under Prime Minister Trudeau's government, was intended to address this type of thing. It was focused on social media, but you would imagine by now it would have extended to AI. In Europe, if there's some suspicion of violence under the European laws, you have to report it. It's required by law. But in Canada and the U.S., you don't. Now, the online harms bill might have addressed that if it was in place. We'll never really know. But the bottom line is that there's a gap. And so we rely on companies to self-report when they decide that it's meeting a certain threshold. And the companies probably make those decisions for 2 reasons. One is because they want to do the right thing. But 2, they don't want to be sued. And we've seen OpenAI, lawsuits in the United States against OpenAI where people have unfortunately committed suicide after having conversations with the platform. And OpenAI, subsequently made changes to their internal policy to try to avoid that situation again. But that's the type of thing that can happen when there's no laws in place.
But if you think about the future, right? I mean, this is why you're saying it's a gray area and why we have to figure out what to do here, because you could be sued for breach of privacy or for, if you take something forward to report it, but you could also be sued, I guess, for liability if you don't report and you're legally required to report, and then someone that you banned from a platform went on to do something and you didn't judge it, as you said, as an imminent and credible threat, the company didn't, then you could be in trouble that way. What's the future then of this, and do you think in terms of making these decisions?
Mm-hmm. So just getting back to the comment you made. So in Canada, if you report it, you think there's a credible imminent threat, you're protected as an employee under PIPEDA legislation, PIPEDA, so that you're not going to be fired, you're not going to be sued. So you are allowed to report it. And in fact, employees could have reported it if they wanted to, even if the company said not to. So that's a good thing in Canada. But I imagine going forward, I think Minister Solomon will come up with pretty quickly a new version of the bill that he'll put into Parliament. But the other thing is, I think they're going to be demanding changes with OpenAI. Premier Eby said that if we had a national threshold or national standard, that would be good. He could say to OpenAI, I want to understand how often are these things happening? How are you dealing with them? Who is looking at them? Are they software developers that are on the trust and safety team? Is it mental health professionals, people with experience in law enforcement? Are they trained appropriately? It's fine to have a threshold, but are the people trained appropriately to make those decisions? We have no idea, and I suspect he'll be putting pressure on them. And, the leverage he'll have in the short term is that he could say, we're not going to buy your product if you don't make these changes. But it's a bit of an uphill battle with OpenAI because the U.S. government is going the opposite way with guardrails.
Tell me if I heard you correctly that Europe does have legislation.
That's correct. Europe has legislation that if there's a suspicion of violence, you have a duty to report.
A suspicion of violence. So in Europe, do they have something we could model after? Should we decide to go in this direction in Canada around how to determine what that suspicion is, or in this case, what the threshold would be to report?
I think so, because I think the only way, the only power we're going to have to influence these companies is through the purse, because ultimately these companies need to make money, and by partnering together with somebody like Europe, because Europe is a big economic engine for companies like OpenAI. They really want to sell into that market, and if we're together, we tend to be doing this alliance modeling with Europe. The more we do that in this space, the better it is for us. It was only when Europe and the UK decided that they were going to start to look at suing Grok and Elon Musk around the days where they were posting images of people undressing, was when Elon Musk changed course. So Canada, it didn't matter what Canada said. It was only when Europe started to make waves. So yeah, I think if we model after that, what we do need to be careful of in Canada is our perspective of free speech and surveillance may be different than the European perspective. So we don't just want to implement it as is. We have to think about what it means for Canada as we do it. But we can't wait too long, because we cannot have another event like this happen again.
All right, we'll leave it there. Francis, thank you as always for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's a technology columnist, Francis Sims, Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Scientist and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. CBC's been covering this story throughout the week, the AI meeting, Evan Solomon, and trying to get some answers to what was understood and known about the shooter, suspect in the Tumbler Ridge shooting. And you can read those stories online at cbc.ca. Coming up in a moment, we're going to have headlines with Heather Wells. I want to mention a couple stories that we're going to have as well on the show. After 7 o'clock on Information Radio, we're going to hear how a friend's life-threatening illness inspired a young Manitoban to give back in what she's doing in terms of her own birthday to try to help others. In addition, in the next hour of the show, an interesting story. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and one Winnipegger felt defeated because he said treatment options available in this province, in his view, would negatively impact his quality of life. So he took matters into his own hands, but he went to seek treatment, or is seeking treatment that is not covered here. So we'll find out who stepped up to support him and what he was told by provincial health officials in Manitoba about it. So that's coming up at 7:40, his journey with prostate cancer. Stay tuned for those two stories. It is partly cloudy right now in Winnipeg. It's -14, a little colder at the airport by a few degrees. Brandon's misty -8, Thompson mostly cloudy -32. Big difference north and south here. In Winnipeg today will stay cloudy, a high of -4, but with wind chill -15. Could see some freezing drizzle this morning as well. And then when you do look north, Thompson's going to have a wind chill that will feel like -33 this morning. The actual high, though, for you in Thompson is -14. We'll get you caught up on your morning drive and commute in just a moment. First, let's go out to Heather Wells, or over, I should say, to Heather Wells, who's in our news center with other headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg Transit is proposing changes to 3 downtown bus routes. The plan is to revise the D16, D18, and D19 starting in June. The goal to make it easier for people to get downtown. We're going to hear from one transit user who says since the overhaul, it has been much more difficult to get downtown. So that's coming up. And at least one city councillor supports a plan to reduce the default speed limit in Winnipeg to 40 kilometers an hour from the current 50. Those stories and more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Got a one-day wonder here. Mission Street's going to be closed today for a street reconstruction. So that is February 26th, obviously, from 6 o'clock, started about an hour ago, lasts till 7 o'clock tonight. So this is a Mission Street eastbound and westbound lanes between Archibald to McTavish. So Mission, Archibald to McTavish, eastbound, westbound lanes all closed today for construction. So you should use an alternate route, because it's closed. 788-3093 if you need to reach us. Check 511 on the highways before you head out. And we can tell you, Corey was checking and found that north of the city, around Selkirk, Lac du Bonnet, you will find the highways partly covered, so it could be a touch tricky. Stay with us. World Report and the latest in national and international news on CBC 89.3 is coming up next at 7 o'clock. And then our show continues. Thanks for being here.
On the Current.
Smoke, smoke, smoke that cigarette.
Pop culture seems to be embracing smoking cigarettes again. Charlie XCX, Jeremy Allen White, just some of the celebrities who were photographed openly smoking recently. Is smoking cool again? What exactly would that mean for smoking rates going forward? We'll talk about that coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. We know what can happen when ICE agents come into a community south of the border. Now some Mohawks on an eastern Ontario First Nation are worried ICE agents are on their doorstep. Akwesasne straddles the Canada-US border. Community members cross it daily. And now, the New York County next door has authorized ICE to train its jail staff. Liam Baker has more on how the Mohawk community is feeling.
We cross that border every single day.
Alihuni David lives on the Ontario side of Akwesasne and works on the New York side. David was watching closely last month when 3 Oglala Sioux tribe members were detained by ICE in Minnesota. He says he's seen social media posts claiming to see ICE agents in St. Lawrence County, New York, which includes some Akwesasne territory.
People have seen them driving around and really concerning.
St. Lawrence County has greenlit ICE to train its correction facility staff, but only to use its databases to check if anyone in jail is in the country illegally. Now that the county has signed off, the Sheriff's Office and ICE just need to sign a contract, and they'll be allowed in to begin training. Matthew Rourke is the chief of the tribal police in St. Regis, Akwesasne's American side. He says social media posts are heightening anxiety.
ICE was not here. They haven't been here. I know exactly who's here in this community.
The Assembly of First Nations is warning people to be wary about crossing the border. Ontario Regional Chief Abram Benedict agrees, but says Indigenous people should be able to move freely in their territory, no matter the country.
ICE may come up to them and ask them for documentation of their residency or where they're born, and that's frankly insulting.
Still, many in Akwesasne say the agreement won't stop them from crossing the border. Liam Baker, CBC News, Akwesasne.
Hillary Clinton will testify behind closed doors today in Chappaqua, New York. The former Secretary of State is due to provide a deposition under oath explaining what she knows about Jeffrey Epstein's network. The House Oversight Committee wants to know what she saw and heard during her time in Epstein's social circle. Florida Republican Anna Paulina Luna is on the committee.
I'm going to be asking them names. From the beginning, we've been asking them for names of people that engaged in the trafficking and the assault of minors. That is the sole focus, I think, and point of this investigation. Also, if there is any other criminal misconduct and wrongdoing.
Former President Bill Clinton is scheduled to testify tomorrow. Two politicians, two different parties, two dueling speeches. The minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade, Dominic LeBlanc, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre are both making public remarks today at the same time. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, let's start with Poilievre. He's been criticized in the past for not talking enough about Trump's tariffs. Will today be a bit of a course correction?
Well, it seems like Pierre Poilievre's office tells our Kate McKenna that today's speech will mention Donald Trump by name, no longer shying away from talking about a U.S. president whose words and actions are divisive for not only Americans, but among Canadian conservatives as well. This speech is expected to lay out policy proposals for Canada-U.S. relations, articulating his support for this emerging idea of creating a strategic energy and mineral reserve, proposing that companies that move intellectual property out of Canada have to repay any taxpayer-funded government support that they received as they were developing it, pitching a new tariff-free auto pact with the Americans, and to take partisan politics out of things, maybe, an all-party CUSMA working group, giving opposition politicians a voice and a role, but also potentially enabling a more united front during negotiations with the Americans.
Janice, let's talk about Dominic LeBlanc, Minister for Canada-U.S. Trade. He's speaking on a similar theme today. What are you listening for there?
Well, we haven't had a clear line of sight from the Canadian side on what's really going on with this joint review of the three-way North American trade deal. LeBlanc's spokesperson tells me he's had brief and informal exchanges with United States Trade Representative Jameson Greer in recent days, a potential meeting in Washington now expected next week. Greer, though, told Bloomberg News yesterday that he's meeting separately with Canada and Mexico because the U.S. relationships and concerns with each are different. The USTR is now proposing separate protocols with each country to tack on to the existing three-way treaty to fix what he called gaps in the deal, reviewing to improve it, but not pull out.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa, thanks for unpacking what will be a lot to watch for today.
You're welcome.
It is an international incident off the coast of Cuba with the potential to escalate.
It is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that. It's not something that happens every day. It's something, frankly, that hasn't happened with Cuba in a very long time.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says American officials are still trying to verify exactly what happened yesterday. According to the Cuban government, a Florida-registered speedboat with 10 people on board entered Cuban waters and opened fire on its soldiers. 4 of the people on the boat were killed, 6 others injured. Rubio says they were not U.S. government personnel.
And we're going to figure out exactly what happened. And there are a number of things that could have happened here. I'm not even going to speculate as to what it could have been. It's a wide range of things. We obviously want to have access to these people if they are American citizens or U.S. residents.
Cuba's Interior Ministry says the people on the boat were anti-government Cubans, some of whom were previously wanted in Cuba. Russia's foreign ministry is calling this incident an aggressive provocation by the United States. Alberta's provincial government is tabling its budget today. The oil-rich province posted a deficit last year, its first one since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as Sam Sampson reports, Alberta could be in the red again this year.
This year's budget will again include the largest ever investment in Alberta's education system.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith served dessert yesterday before the meat of the provincial budget drops. She's promising more than $10 billion for education funding, even in tough times.
This year, we're dealing with a significant deficit resulting from the twin pressures of low energy prices and near record high population growth. But investing in the next generation of Albertans remains the utmost priority for our government.
Fair deal now! Fair deal now! Education is a major sticking point after Alberta teachers went on strike for 3 weeks last fall. The province also says Budget 2026 contains more funding for healthcare, including a 22% increase in doctor pay spending. But that means cuts to other sectors and a second consecutive year in the red.
And I'm also interested to know whether that matters to Albertans.
Calgary pollster Janet Brown says Alberta could be in the same boat as most provinces, which reported significant deficits for the past year. And while Albertans are finely tuned to economic ups and downs, there could be other things catching their attention right now.
Separation, immigration, referendum questions.
Though the Premier has hinted she's ruled out big social service cuts and tax hikes, the fine print will reveal just how Danielle Smith's government plans to attack this debt. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Faced with tariffs and trade uncertainty, Canada, as we know, is looking for ways to shore up the economy. But a new report says there's one asset we already have worth billions of dollars: our national parks. The report says conservation areas do much more than protect wildlife, and billions more could be unlocked by investing in lesser-known conservation areas. Anand Ram explains.
I would be off at 4 o'clock. I would go home, I would get my fishing gear, and then I would drive up into a little mountain pass and go find a creek.
That's easy when you work and live at Waterton Lakes National Park in Alberta. Sean Nickel did in 2022. A profound experience, showing visitors a place under the shadow of more well-known parks.
This is one of the better parks, and nobody sees it because they all go to Banff and Jasper.
A new report from the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society says experiences like Nickel's and those he welcomed are part of seeing our forests for more than just the trees. They're economic engines.
We're chronically undervaluing nature.
Jason Wong is a co-author of the new report. He says conservation is an investment with returns.
Protected areas bring over $10.9 billion worth of contribution to Canada's GDP. Not just the work that goes on in protected areas, but all of the jobs and the tax revenues of all these other sectors that depend on protected areas.
The report also says that boosting public awareness of lesser-known but easily accessible parks like Waterton Lakes is a good way to keep the money coming. For Nickel, parks were a meaningful source of employment and a lifelong passion.
It's something that I'm really proud to be doing and something I would like to pass down to my family someday as well.
Canada is just under halfway to its target to protecting 30% of its lands by 2030, a target some critics say won't happen, but the report is a reminder of why that promise is worth achieving. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. And one of the top stories this hour from our JP Tasker in Ottawa, what to expect from the Prime Minister's visit to India. He leaves today for trips to Delhi and Mumbai. cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It's going to be significantly warmer in Winnipeg this morning than it was yesterday. Thanks for being with us on Information Radio here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. This half hour on the program, we are going to be talking to a little girl who has decided that she wants to make her birthday about charitable giving, and we're going to find out how. Also this hour, we'll talk to a retired teacher who lives with prostate cancer, and he says that he tried treatment options available to him here, considered them rather, but then in the end, he decided that those would negatively impact his quality of life. So where is he seeking treatment now, and why has the province said that they can't help him with financial coverage of it? We'll find out. And then at 10 to 8 this morning, we will have a conversation with Winnipeg's Downtown Biz to find out how the city's new transit system and the changes that were just announced this week are impacting the city's core. How's it affecting downtown? Stay tuned. Heather Wells is watching other stories also. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg doctor wishes the province was doing more to warn people about a growing outbreak of hepatitis A. Dr. Glenn Drobot is an internal medicine specialist. He says he only saw a handful of cases of Hep A in the past 20 years, but he has seen 4 more in just the past 2 months and was surprised to learn there have been more than 300 cases of Hep A across the province. Some cycling advocates are furious with a plan to scrap temporary bike lanes on Wellington Crescent in favor of permanent lanes. Councillor Janice Luke says a new city report shows the temporary approach would only slightly improve safety, but she says it won't be ready for more than a year. A handful of protesters turned out at City Hall yesterday. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, I mentioned warmer, that is for southern Manitoba. Abby's here to talk about the forecast.
Yeah, we're looking at cloudy and unsettled stats across the regions this morning. For the south, we're still seeing temperatures. We're looking at some regions down south around -6, and then we're tracking it all the way to about -22 in the Gimli area this morning. But for Winnipeg, -14, at the Forks, -17 at the airport, and some areas in between -16s also. We spotted some foggy conditions within the city limits and also outside the city, but that should dissipate as we get into the morning. We warm up to about -4 later today with light winds. The wind chill this morning might be something to take into consideration, but we'll be hovering around -23 all morning before we get to that -4, which is a high for the day. While up north, we're still seeing temperatures close to -35 for Tuduli Lake and Churchill this morning. We're seeing currently temperatures around -28, so take it easy out with the wind chill close to -40. For Winnipeg right now, let's just say -15 is a sweet spot.
All right, well, let's give people some sweet picks, shall we? I'm hoping you're watching on YouTube this morning. Before we look at traffic, I want everyone to see some still shots we took yesterday out on the ice at the Forks. Our show is live down there, and for all of the gray days that happen, during the winter, when it's tough to, we have a long, cold winter here. This is the antidote to all of that, because this was just the perfect winter day, and we got beautiful photos. You're going to see some of what makes our province the most beautiful visually in the winter months as well. So these are the commuters that were down there, photos of people that were walking the trail and skating and biking. There's our CBC group that put on the early morning broadcast, and all the folks that came by to share what they feel about our winter city, and also the negative things that we can do better, like walking on sidewalks. Some of the simple things still need fixes. But there sure was a lot to celebrate, and I have to say, wow, the sun was streaming down on us after 8 o'clock, and there's a picture coming up here. We're going to roll again here of me with the sky behind me. It absolutely looks like I color touched it. That blue is incredible, and that is just Manitoba, folks. It sure is pretty when it cooperates. So we'll see what today's going to bring. As Abby said, should be warmer. Let's get into what's going on in the morning commute. Corey Funk is back in to tell us about a couple things.
I actually got a call from one of the commuters who was actually down there yesterday. Jason gave us a call. He was biking down westbound McDermott, and he actually noticed there was a boom right in the middle of the bike lane on westbound McDermott. So you kind of got to get off, walk around. So heads up there this morning. Thanks for calling, Jason. A couple other things to keep an eye out for going on today. There's also an issue on Mission. Just for one day today, eastbound, westbound lanes of Mission between Archibald and McTavish are closed for street construction. Just for today, it started at 6 a.m. It's going to run until 7 p.m. So you're going to want to use alternative routes to get around for that. Also today, just started about 15 minutes ago, the residential parking ban starts this morning. And that's going to run, start today at 7 a.m. until Saturday at 7 p.m. And during that time, if you're along a winter route, the winter route parking ban is actually ended. Just for the duration of the residential ban until Saturday. So that means that drivers on those winter routes can park Thursday and Friday. But you do want to go to the Know Your Zone to see when those residential parking bans are in effect, so those plows can come through. So just go to Know Your Zone and you'll find out which ones are
you'll know your zone.
Yeah, DG, H, P, and S, if that means something to you. That's what it starts today, so check that out. If you have anything else that you're seeing out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, that number 204-788-3093.
Well, a nice story to start our hour here. You know how a lot of kids count down to their birthday? Maybe they're thinking about what gifts they'll receive. One Manitoban has flipped that idea on its head. So instead of presents, 11-year-old Sophie Duncan has been asking her friends to donate to the Dream Factory, a local organization that grants wishes to children with life-threatening illnesses. She's been doing this for 3 years. She's actually helped create the Dream Party Club now. And this is an initiative offered to any child who chooses to celebrate their birthdays by giving back to the Dream Factory. Sophie joins us via Zoom this morning. Hi, Sophie.
Hi.
And also she's sitting with her mom, Courtney. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell me a little bit about how this started, because it's actually kind of a sad reason, right? Did you lose a friend?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, her name was Hazel, I heard. How long were you guys friends?
I think I only got to meet her about once or twice.
A few times. So it's actually a coworker's daughter of mine that we knew through work.
Got it.
But we came really close as she was going through treatment and battling. Yeah.
Yeah, what was she sick with?
She had a type of brain cancer.
Okay. What was it like for you to be, young like as you are, Sophie, and then, know that somebody passed away like that you'd known?
It was really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where this idea first came from a few years back then, to donate your gifts.
I mean, I had the idea of donating to charity, and I asked Hazel's mom, what Hazel would want me to donate my money to. And Hazel said the Dream Factory, so I decided to donate my birthday money to the Dream Factory.
What does it feel like when you do that on your birthdays now? It's been a few years you're doing it. What does it make you feel like when you do it?
I feel really good. Instead of getting birthday presents, I get to know that I made somebody's dream come true.
What was your reaction, Courtney, when Sophie started really not only, taking on this initiative for 1 year, but, for repeated years?
Yeah, I was really proud of her. It was something that she wanted to do on her own. And the fact that she took the initiative to find out what charity Hazel, it would mean a lot to her. And I know the Dream Factory made their family's dreams come true and sent them to Disneyland. So the fact that she's making other kids' dreams come true is just really heartwarming, and really birthday presents that hang around the house for a little bit. She's now just, making dreams that can last a lifetime for another family. It's pretty special.
When is your birthday, Sophie?
October 11th.
Okay. Now you already, do you lay out goals every year because you've been doing this for a while? Do you think about how much you might like to raise for the Dream Factory?
Yeah, I do.
And what are your thoughts this year? What are you thinking?
1,000.
1,000. Okay, so $1,000. In the past, what have you raised? Do you remember?
I think my first birthday I raised about 400.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second birthday I had doing this, I raised about 600. And my last birthday I raised, I think, 900 something.
Okay, so this is actually your 4th year doing it, if you look back.
Yeah.
Why do you keep doing it?
Because
a lot of us like presents, and we might go, oh, well,
Yeah.
want to be charitable, and maybe you could keep being charitable in other ways, but maybe you'd go back to saying, hey, Mom, maybe I'd like a gift this year. But why do you keep doing this?
It makes me feel really good. Yeah.
What do you think, Courtney, the experience has taught Sophie?
I think it's taught her that, little things can turn into big things. This is amazing that the Dream Factory has, moved on this, and that other kids can do the same thing now. So I think just showing that your ideas can turn into bigger ideas that really do make a difference.
How do you feel about that, Sophie, that they've created this Dream Party Club?
I feel surprised that something so simple can turn into something like this. And I just hope that other kids get inspired by this and say, maybe I could do that, or I should do that for my birthday.
It's those simple, beautiful ideas that we need more of in the world, I think, especially now. Thank you for yours. Thank you, Sophie.
You're welcome.
And also nice to meet you as well, Courtney. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Live on CBC on Zoom, 11-year-old Sophie Duncan and her mother, Courtney. For more on the Dream Party Club, you can visit Dream Party, which is dreamparty.raisleysite.com, dreamparty.raisleysite.com.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
-15 the temperature in Winnipeg. Now, earlier in the last hour of the show, we were talking about the ongoing reaction to Winnipeg Jets goalie Connor Hellebuyck and Team USA, the gold medal Olympic winning team, being at the State of the Union. And also that phone call Donald Trump made to the dressing room right after the games and the gold medal was won, making a quote-unquote joke about I'll have to invite the women's team, you guys know, and the big round of laughter. A lot of reaction to all of this. Of course, the women's team did not appear at the State of the Union. They said they were otherwise engaged, but we've since heard from their captain some comments. We're asking about Winnipeggers' reactions to this, and Trevor Alexander, writer for Hockey Blog in Canada, weighed in the last hour and just was framing, some reaction to Connor Hellebuyck, how Winnipeg fans might be feeling, but also talking about the fact that many people do get invites to the White House and such. So that is all to set up a call that we got on the listener line with some more reaction to Hellebuyck.
Hi, Marcy. It's Louise Waldman calling. Just responding to your request for people to comment on Connor Hellebuyck and the way Winnipeggers might be feeling. I just want to say I thought the blogger from the hockey publication here in Canada was perhaps being a little naive. Like, to me, the issue isn't just who's bestowing the Presidential Medal of Freedom or the fact that they went to the White House. The State of the Union is different than going to the White House. I think I would have been fine with going to the White House. The State of the Union is a very political speech, and Trump made it so. So they sat there while he rambled on for 2.5 hours and repeated all kinds of his very, troubling policies. But to me, the real issue here is the fact that Connor Hellebuyck was one of the people that we could see in the locker room laughing along with this joke. And then since then, there has been radio silence from Connor Hellebuyck and from most of the men in that room, other than a few people just saying, oh, don't make it political. We're not here to make it political. Well, actually, you've made it political because you accepted an invitation to a political event, the State of the Union. You've made it political because you never once raised the issue that, hey, actually, other than a half-assed invitation to the women's hockey team that was made as a joke, there has been no appreciation shown for women athletes who performed better than male athletes for the U.S. in the Olympics. And in general, it's just very distasteful. It really exposes this kind of bro-y hockey culture. And the other thing that really kills me is the absolute tone-deaf silence from the Jets and from every other NHL franchise in the face of a very real pushback from female and male fans across the NHL saying, hey, this isn't what hockey should be about. Your whole message of hockey's for everyone, this doesn't feel like it. And so I think we're all quite rightfully disappointed in Hellebuyck, in the Jets as a franchise, and in the entirety of the NHL. And to me, it is not about politics at all, capital P. It is about politics, small p. Are you a decent human being or not? And that's where my anger lies, because I think what we're seeing is actually what they say out loud in public is very different than what they laugh along to in private.
So that's a call we got in our listener line as, reaction continues to Connor Hellebuyck being at the State of the Union. We are now turning our attention to morning sports. Now, Hellebuyck wasn't on the ice last night. The Jets did, though, return to action following the Olympic break, and that is where Scott Reguera is starting. Good morning.
Yeah, and I'll touch on the Jets ultimately a win in overtime against the Canucks last night. But let's just retrace, since we listened to that very articulate message from our listener. This is what U.S. Captain Hillary Knight had to say about all of it.
The joke was distasteful and unfortunate. And I think, just the way women are represented, it's a great teaching point to really shine light on how women should be championed for their amazing feats. And now I have to sit in front of you and explain someone else's behavior. It's not my responsibility. But what is shifting the focus and shifting the narrative of this amazing accomplishment that we all did together.
Asked about the men's players responding to Trump by laughing at his joke, Knight called it a quick lapse in judgment. And she says now when her teammates' PWHL and college responsibilities die down a little bit, she hopes to celebrate their gold medal. And rapper Flavor Flav, who served as Team USA's hype man in Italy, has extended his own invitation to them for what he calls a real celebration, not in D.C., but rather in Las Vegas. So interesting.
Yeah, thank you for adding that context. Appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. And now back to the aforementioned Jets. Cole Perfetti saved them last night in Vancouver, scoring the overtime winner. Winnipeg twice had the lead in the game against the Canucks, who are at the bottom of the league standings. So, a little uneven to start this final stretch of the schedule. And obviously mentioned Connor Hellebuyck not in goal last night, but will probably draw when they play next against Anaheim.
Let's go to soccer. There are growing concerns right now over Team Canada's health ahead of the FIFA World Cup, right?
Yeah, there are, as we approach 100 days to go before that tournament. Over the weekend, Marcy, the team's captain and arguably greatest talent, Alphonso Davies, got hurt again. And so did one of Canada's best strikers, Promise David. He's currently second in Belgian league scoring, but ruptured the tendon between his quad and his hip and could be out 5 months. Davies, meanwhile, suffered a small hamstring tear while playing for his club Bayern Munich, and the hope is he'll only miss a few weeks. Maybe so, but an already goal-scoring challenged national team did not need this news. And former Canadian midfielder Jim Brennan says it cannot be easy right now for coach Jesse Marsh.
As an international football head coach, it definitely is frustrating. He's probably watching every single match thinking, please, God, don't get any injuries here. And then all of a sudden now he's got 2. So it is difficult, but he's obviously got a game plan. He's probably chopping and changing all the time, thinking, okay, what if this guy's not available? What do I do? He's probably a nervous wreck every single weekend that these games are going on. Because I know I would be freaking out.
105 days to go till kickoff. TikTok.
No doubt. Baseball has started. Big developments for the Jays in the mound, right?
Yeah, Max Scherzer's coming back for one more year, a $3 million deal. So that's a cut rate compared to what he's made in the past. And this season, Scherzer's going to have some added help. Joining Mad Max on the pitching staff, Marcy, is going to be the Star Wars-loving Cody Ponce, who had a really nice debut yesterday, throwing in the high 90s while retiring the side against Detroit. So the force was with him.
I have a tattoo of Star Wars that I love. It's why I chose 30 last year, was because my initials were CP30 instead of C3PO. I will watch anything and everything whenever I can. I've been telling my wife we need to start turning on some Star Wars for our baby girl so she understands where she's at in life, as she's our little Leia. She just says she's not ready for it yet.
Committed, that's for sure.
There's buns in that kid's future.
Yeah, are there ever? She's not going to have a choice in the matter, it doesn't sound like. Can't wait till they play the Yankees, a.k.a. you know what? Evil Empire.
Nice. Nicely done. Mic drop. Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
That's Scott Reguer. It's time for the news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It is -15. We are warming up, though. This afternoon's high is -4, and then the temperature just keeps climbing overnight to -2 by tomorrow morning before the cold returns just in time for the weekend. A Winnipeg doctor says he has treated about as many cases of hepatitis A in the past 2 months as he has in the previous 20 years. Dr. Glenn Drobot is an internal medicine specialist. He wishes the province was doing more to warn people about an outbreak of hepatitis A that has infected hundreds.
Compared to the prior 20 years,
There have been, a handful of cases of hepatitis A within the province, and now we are up to over 300 throughout the province in a little under a year. So that's quite concerning.
The acute liver infection can cause nausea and jaundice. It can spread through food and drinking water contaminated with feces from an infected person. A spokesperson tells CBC the province is working to keep people informed about prevention and response measures, including contact tracing and immunization. A plan to scrap temporary bike lanes on Wellington Crescent has infuriated some cycling advocates. Councillor Janice Luke says a new city report shows the temporary approach would only slightly improve safety, but it would, she says, disrupt traffic and look cluttered. Luke's wants to push ahead with a permanent bike lane. She admits, though, that won't be ready for more than a year. Ariel Villaren lives on Wellington. She was at City Hall yesterday with a sign reading, "Whose kid is next?"
Delaying a permanent solution for next year means that Janice Lukes is okay with somebody getting killed, getting hit down that very busy piece of active transportation.
Councillor Lukes will seek approval to abandon the temporary plan for permanent lanes at next week's committee meeting. Winnipeg Transit is proposing changes to 3 downtown bus routes. The plan is to revise the D16, D18, and D19 starting in June. Transit's goal is to make it easier for people to get downtown and to bring buses closer to Graham Avenue and the Winnipeg Clinic. Nolan Day takes transit to get to the University of Winnipeg.
It takes longer and it takes more buses for me to get home now, so it turned from like a 20-minute bus ride to about 40 to an hour at times, and I'm spending more time in the cold.
The proposal still has to be approved by the Public Works Committee. The changes will be debated at a meeting on March 4th. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour, right here on Information Radio. At least one city councillor supports a plan to reduce the default speed limit in Winnipeg to 40 kilometers an hour from the current 50. It could apply to all residential streets and some collector streets. Councillor Janice Luke says 50 kilometers an hour is too fast in many neighborhoods.
I have constant calls on traffic calming, constantly every week on traffic calming. So if we slow down the speed in residential for a city that's increasing in population and densification with many, many apartment blocks, people coming from all over the world, biking, walking, I think it's a good thing.
The plan will need approval from the province because Highway Traffic Act would have to be changed. A Winnipeg chiropractor who pleaded guilty to voyeurism has been given a conditional discharge. Robert Stitt was charged after hidden cameras disguised as sprinkler heads were found at Natural Wellness Chiropractic Center. CBC's Caitlin Garlick has the details.
8 patients secretly videotaped as they changed into gowns at their chiropractor's office, including one whose breasts were exposed. But, court heard Wednesday, chiropractor Robert Stitt installed those cameras because of issues with thefts, and not for a sexual purpose. Stitt pleaded guilty to voyeurism in October for videos taken in late 2023 and early 2024, in a case the judge called an extraordinary mistake in judgment. Stitt's conditional discharge means he'll need to be on good behavior for the next year. He's still suspended and not allowed to practice as a chiropractor. The Manitoba Chiropractors Association says Stitt will now go through its disciplinary process. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney boards a government jet today to open a 10-day trip abroad. Carney will visit India, Australia, and Japan. It's his first trip overseas since his headline-making speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos when he called for middle powers to band together. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, fresh off the Olympic break, the Jets take it to overtime in Vancouver.
Pass Perfetti! Shoots and scores!
Cole Perfetti on TSN with the winner against the Canucks. Other goals from Olympic gold medal winner Kyle Connor and Gabriel Velarde. Mark Scheifele with 2 assists last night says it's good to be back.
Nice to be back all together, just playing hockey again. So, it was a big 2 points for us.
The Jets stay on the West Coast now, playing in Anaheim against the Ducks tomorrow night. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
7:36 a.m. on CBC. And Abby's here with our regional forecast now. It's once again one of those days where we're going to luck out in the south, but to the north, really cold.
Yes, true, Marcy. And we're tracking cloudy conditions in some area and a mix of snow in the northern part of the province, along with that cold wind chill really slamming the northern part of the province. But down south, we're seeing temperatures between -3 and -23 at this time, depending on where you are in southern Manitoba. Winnipeg, for example, we're around -15 at the Forks, and at the airport, we're tracking -19. Mainly clear skies, though morning temperatures will hover around -9 before we get to a daily high of -4 later in the day under light winds. And then tonight, a slim chance of flurries with temperatures even get warming to about -2 by tomorrow morning. For the Pembina Valley region, sitting at -7 at this time with cloudy skies, a risk of freezing drizzle expected. Your highs would reach -2 with light winds. For the western part of the province, Westman region, Brandon and surrounding communities, tracking it towards Nipawin, -8 at this time. Mostly cloudy skies. You do climb to about 0 later today. There's a slim chance of flurries and a breezy afternoon for you. In the Parkland region, Dauphin is cloudy at -14 at this time, warming up to -2. There's a slim chance of flurries also in the forecast. In Interlake region, Gimli and surrounding areas, we're tracking -17 at this time, mainly cloudy skies, warming up to -4, though the morning wind chill makes it feel close to -20. Then we're tracking it into the northern part of the province, where we're seeing temperatures are close to -32. For the path influence around communities, we're looking at -25 to -27 at this time. Clear conditions, but the morning wind chill feels like -34. Thompson is sitting at -31, mostly cloudy. You warm up to -14, though that wind chill makes it feel like -33. For the Gillam area, you're around -34 at this time. To the lake, we're tracking -27. Lane Lake is at around -24 with light snow rather. And further north in Churchill, we're looking at -28 with light snow. And of course, there's some ice crystals there. We'll see you high around -24, but the extreme wind chill close to -42 later is something you need to take into consideration, as frostbite can occur in minutes. But for Winnipeg right now, it's -19 at the airport.
Who can even believe it's the last week of February? Like
Right.
last few days already, right? We're almost into March. Soon we're going to get a little more time back, a little more light in the day. Let's get through this part. It's cold in the north. Okay, let's get into what's happening right now on the streets of Winnipeg and on the highways this morning with Corey.
Yeah, let's start with the highways. Looks like the most troubled spots on the highways right now are kind of northeast of the city, particularly Highway 59 as you kind of get around the lake there, and then heading east 317 towards Lac de Bonnie. Those seem to be the worst covered right now, according to Manitoba 501. Would love to get some updates on that. Here in the city, though, a couple things to keep an eye out for. All eastbound, westbound lanes of Mission between Archibald and McTavish are closed just for today. It started at 6 a.m. and that's going to run until 7 p.m. So that might throw you off a little bit on your commute this morning. Also got a call from Jason who said westbound McDermott. If you're biking in the bike lane there, there is a boom lift blocking your way. That's right around the Burton Cummings Theater there. So you might have to get off and go around that. Final thing here, residential parking ban actually starts today, at 7 a.m. So those plows can come through. So you want to check the Know Your Zone app to see if that impacts you at all. And reminder, if you are along one of those winter parking ban routes, it's actually that winter parking route ban is just lifted just while this residential parking ban is going on. I know it's kind of confusing, but just go to the Know Your Zone app and you'll find out if you can park in your area or not. Give me a call if you see anything else. So 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
20 to 8 right now on your Thursday morning. Next on the show, after being diagnosed with prostate cancer, one Winnipegger felt like his choices for treatment were limited in Manitoba because the options available in our province, he looked at them and thought they might make his life worse. But it's 2,000 kilometers away and costs thousands of dollars to find something else. So to tell us more about his story, Thomas Reed's in studio. He's a retired teacher of 35 years. He worked at Fort Richmond Collegiate, and that's going to come into play and be important. But he's here to share what's been going on with his health. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
When were you diagnosed with prostate cancer?
In July.
Oh, it's just last year. I'm sorry.
It just happened. Well, no, it's about 5 years ago, I complained that I was peeing too much at night, urinating. The doctor sent me for a PSA test, which is
standard, yeah.
Standard, and it came back high. So sent me over to the urologist, and after waiting a couple of months to see him, they did for the next couple of years, just every 6 months, checked, and the numbers weren't going down, so they did a biopsy, and that's when we found out that in August, that there was cancer.
What was it like for you that moment?
It was strange because, first of all, it was a phone call, and I actually said to the urologist, I said, if we were dating, you broke up with me, would you do it over a text? Like, there's something about face to face. However, It was very good. It kicked me, and first of all, it was confusing, and then all of a sudden, when I had to explain it to, like, say, my daughter or my mom or my brother or a friend, it choked me up because it's more like, oh, they need to know, and it's confusing. Then all I did was just start looking at what my options are.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because there'll be certainly, as you know, a lot of people out there that will, have gone through or maybe are going through the same thing, those moments.
Oh, yeah. You never know. And I think over the time in the last 6 months, I probably had about one pity party, lasted about 20 minutes, and then I woke up one night just full of anxiety, thinking, what's going on? So that's why the more research I did on it made me feel a lot more comfortable about the whole situation.
So tell me a bit about the options you found. So as I mentioned specifically here, what made you say that treatment options in Manitoba could make your life worse?
Well, the quality of life, the treatments here, and don't get me wrong, the surgery option and the radiation option, both Cancer Care Manitoba and the Elders, they're brilliant what they do. But what they do is they deal with the gland, and they eliminate the gland rather than the tumor within the gland. And for a lot of cases, that's your only option. And
how does that leave you with your life then after?
Well, for a lot of ways, they say it leads to incontinence. I have some bowel issues as it is already, and that's all the area around there. But and then erectile dysfunction. But I mean, it's funny with that one. It's kind of like I was thinking, it's like your microwave. You don't think you use it until it breaks, and then oh wait a minute, I just compared an erection to a microwave. Anyway, so
this interview, I like it.
Right, better, yeah. So, but that's it. And then I did
quality of life things.
Quality of life, and then I did some more research and certain types of prostate cancer. I found this in Europe and the States. Can benefit from focal treatment. Focal treatment just focusing specifically on the tumor. Mm-hmm. And I found in Toronto that they have two clinics there that a bunch of urologists got together and decided to form this organization. And I think there's one in Montreal as well. You have to be eligible. You have to have a certain type of prostate cancer. So the MRI happened, sent in December, sent the results to them. Anticipating they'll get back to me, and lo and behold, they're out in Christmas holidays. But they did get back to me after and said, yeah, I'm a candidate, and from then on, I just went forward.
So you're actually having this procedure March 19th. It's called NanoKnife, and it specifically targets, so hopefully, I guess you wouldn't be left with some of these things we're talking about, like incontinence and such, because it's more specific.
It's more specifically, so the gland is still being left intact. Yeah. And what they're doing, what they end up doing is they enter a certain area with some 19 millimeter needles, 6 to 8 of them, I believe, and attack the tumor through, I think, electricity, basically. And then it dissolves. And so then after that, just every 3 months, do a PSA, and hopefully it works.
$25,000 is what it costs. How are you paying for it?
Well, originally, because my ego was getting in the way, and just by chance, my mortgage was coming due in March. Actually, I'm going to go sign it today. So I called them ahead, and I put another $30,000 on the mortgage. But some good friends of mine and some colleagues and family said, well, just try this GoFundMe. And again, ego, no, I can do it. And then finally I said, I just did it. So just on Monday, I put it together. The grandkids helped do a video on it, which is actually really cool. And then on Monday at about 5 o'clock at night, sitting there, I phoned. I said, okay, let's release it. So we released it. And then with the help of my daughter, my grandkids, my son-in-law, they all posted it. Some friends posted it, the link to this thing. And by noon, it was covered the next day. We already surpassed it, and now we're well surpassed it.
I mentioned you're a teacher. I understand a lot of former students come out of the woodwork.
Well, that's what's even better than the money, because all of a sudden I'll get a Instagram text from somebody that's saying, "Hey, you taught me in 1989.
Yeah.
Great, glad I can help."
What are you going to do with the money that came in above and beyond what you need for the surgery?
A good point. At the very beginning, we said I'm going to collect, and I was anticipating enough money for a flight and maybe the hotel. I wasn't anticipating the whole coverage, but it has gone way past.
Because It's like $37,000 or something.
It's $37,000 plus some money that people didn't use GoFundMe and they want to do direct. What we're going to do with that money is I want to give more awareness to bringing NanoKnife to here.
Okay.
I have approached the Minister of Health. They got back to me really quick, both times responding. I was just putting it out there because I knew they won't cover it because it's still considered experimental. It's been here for 18 years.
So let's talk about that. I just want to dig into that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So you did actually, obviously we know what's happening with your journey, but there was a point here where you knew it was experimental. You reached out. Did you reach out just asking in case they might cover it?
I wanted to put the bug out there in case they.
And what did they say to you?
They were really good coming back. They used one word I didn't like. There's a word, it's an administration word called adequate. They said, we have adequate services in Manitoba. I said, no, guys, you don't. You have really good services in Manitoba. We just don't have this one.
Okay.
And so hopefully, like I know in the States, what they said that, I don't know if it's the FDA or whoever approves it, but they're approving it now for Medicare this year.
So but by you saying, but they say it's experimental, which they do. I also have a statement from the province, so I'm reading the language correctly. But you're saying it has been around for 18 years, and now you're pointing to things that are changing in the States for NanoKnife. Do you think they should seriously consider offering this here?
Well, economically, I think it would be a great choice too, because the NanoKnife, I've done way too much research on this, but the NanoKnife machine is like, it's like $375,000 as compared to the $5 million robots we're buying and all that stuff. That is rather economical, as well as there's a lot of people in my condition with that type of prostate cancer that would benefit from this procedure. So I think it should be. And if people like in Toronto and Montreal, they're bringing the private ones in, I think sooner or later it should be government.
So your ask wouldn't be to have the government cover $25,000 for patients that might want to have NanoKnife out of province. You just think they should invest in the technology to have it here.
I think that would be the ideal way. Yes.
Yeah.
I think let's keep it in province.
How are you feeling about March 19th?
When I finally got approved, my daughter said to me, she texted back, she goes, "Oh, it's real now." This was just like 5 weeks ago. And I go, "Yeah, it's real." And you don't really think about it, especially when so now it's real. Now it's going to happen. But it's a 3-hour procedure. You're an outpatient. The only downside at first is you're cathetered for maybe 3-4 days.
Yeah.
I've never been to Toronto either. So, well, the airport, but never been. So
let us know how you do. Thanks for giving us a laugh this morning, and also something to think about around this emerging technology and this procedure, Thomas.
Great.
Good luck.
All right. Thank you for having us.
That is Thomas Reed, retired teacher of 35 years in our community. Just to reiterate here, CBC also did reach out to the province for comment to understand this. In a statement, as Thomas alluded to, the province did say, quote, "NanoKnife is currently considered an emerging treatment. At this time, there is insufficient evidence regarding potential complications and long-term outcomes from the procedure. NanoKnife is not currently covered by any provincial health insurance plan in the country, including in Manitoba. For this reason, Manitoba Health and Seniors and Long-Term Care is unable to approve coverage for this treatment under the out-of-province program." Right now, the time, 11 minutes to 8.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Next story is on the show here is something that you've been hearing in the news this morning with Heather. It is about the transit system, Winnipeg's overhaul. We've heard so many stories from riders who say they've not been happy with the changes. Now there's a new survey focused on specifically riders traveling through the downtown, saying backing up some of those sentiments rather. So according to this survey done by Probe Research in downtown Winnipeg Biz, they found nearly 85% of people reported being unhappy with the system. So here's just a minute of how 3 city officials reacted to the results, starting with senior transit planner Adam Badowski.
It was concerning. It was a little disheartening, but that's where we need to know that at transit, we just got to pull up our socks and we got to make sure we're making good changes that help our passengers out. We always knew we were going to be making some of these changes as we launched the network, and we just got to keep going on them.
The big change we made to the primary transit network was the right decision, but I'm not pleased with the way it's rolled out. I don't think anyone is pleased. We're having to make a lot of adjustments, but we will make the adjustments. We'll keep making, refining and retooling the transit system until we get it right.
Yeah, I'm really glad they did it. I'm really glad that we've got this feedback. We've seen in the transit report that came out, we're making a lot of changes. We're adding buses, changing routes. It's so important for people to give their feedback, and I want to thank the Downtown Biz for going to that effort. You know, it wasn't it was a survey that people could send in their same response 10 times. I think it was about 1,400 people that gave feedback, all huge value for the transit department to work through. And I think today's reports that have come out have shown that we're listening to people, we're taking the feedback, and we're making those adjustments. And 4 times a year the schedule changes, so 4 times a year we make changes. So keep the feedback coming.
Janice Luke, City Councillor, Chair Public Works for the city as well. Also there, Mayor Scott Gillingham and Senior Transit Planner Adam Badowski. Now, we should point out the survey is not representative of all transit riders in Winnipeg. Kate Fensky is here, though, to talk about it. She's CEO of Downtown Winnipeg Biz, and she joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
I just want to start with what Janice Luke's just said there. Is it true people could, vote a whole bunch of times and 10 times respond?
They could definitely try, but Probe Research is so great at this. They know what they're doing on the survey, so they actually take out anything that's a bot or anything that is double or anything like that. So they really make sure that it was specifically focused on downtown riders one at a time.
Okay, so you don't feel that we should, I don't want to use the incorrect language, but just dismiss sort of what was found here to feel like maybe this was stacked somehow by one person that hates the routes.
No, definitely not. And when we look at random sampling surveys that are typically what you would do with statistically valid information, we really wanted to make sure that we could hear from everyone that wanted to provide feedback. So absolutely, I will say the one other skew on this is educated women really filled out the survey. So we thought that was really interesting. But when we look at the demographics breakdown, there's a really good mix between income levels, where people live in the city, but it was really focused on people that are using transit to get to, from, or around downtown.
Take us into the impact the new bus routes have had then on how often people are visiting downtown and what you're taking away out of the survey.
What we heard overwhelmingly that people are finding it worse. It probably wasn't surprising for us to hear that, but when we look at just across the board, commute times are increasing significantly. About a third of the people who responded to our survey said their commutes downtown are more than an hour now. Overall, they I think that was average about 29 minutes increase, or 22 minutes increase from 29 to 51. So when we look at how we're getting people downtown, it's about making sure that we no matter how you want to get here, whether you're driving, you're on a bike, you're walking, or you're taking the bus, that it's easy for you and it works for you. So we're removing barriers rather than adding them.
So that data, that number, 22 minutes on average up to 51 is going to change someone's life. It'll change how they go through their day. What do you hope comes out of the report in terms of specifically which routes could be changed maybe, or how?
Mm-hmm. We've had really great conversations with the city already. Actually, Adam from Winnipeg Transit, and Bjorn and the team over there, they're really committed to making this work. And it's not about that, when we talk about what is important for us as a downtown community with transit, it's really that frequent and functional transit is the system, but it has to be frequent and functional. So we've had good conversations with them. They've already proposed a couple of route changes based on the feedback. And I want to thank everyone that did fill out this survey, because it was also solution focused of what would make it easier. So we heard from, it was more challenging in terms of how far people would have to walk. And we really saw that there was, it was impacting more seniors, folks with mobility challenges, and lower income. So we're really hoping that those are addressed first. And one of the proposed changes on the route D19 was actually a suggestion that came from one of our businesses on Graham Avenue that has been so impacted by that change. So bringing a couple folks through, or a couple routes back through Graham that are going to stop there and also support the Winnipeg Clinic.
I was going to ask you about the Graham corridor, because I understood it came up quite a lot. What were you hearing from downtown transit riders before the survey went out? Is that what led you to look into this in a deeper way?
Yeah, it first started when the changes happened. Summer was kind of quiet, but we were hearing from some of our staff, actually, that their commutes, so it was challenging for them to get in for their shift. And so we thought, well, let's ask staff, how are you getting to work? What's happening? Or how are the changes affecting you? Do we need to look at schedule shift changes or things like that? But we started hearing from businesses, and then from community members and downtown residents and downtown workers. And so we really wanted to get an understanding, are these just sort of anecdotal stories that we're hearing, or is it a widespread issue that is really having big impacts on downtown businesses and the vibrancy here. So we thought, let's try a survey, let's get some information. So we have a benchmark now. Our hope is that these numbers go up. We will want to check back in after the city makes the changes that it's working to make.
And I guess just last, we're talking about people, it sounds like, businesses and commuters that might be daily on the service. Do you think that the changes that might come out of this might also have an impact on more people visiting downtown as well?
We hope so. I mean, we're starting to get momentum back. We all know that there's been a real challenge over the last few years. And so it's really important when any government is making a policy decision that up front they are looking at the impacts on downtown so there aren't negative unintended consequences. That's really critical. And right now, we're just hoping that they can move these changes as quickly as possible. They are getting the data now. We're helping wherever we can. They've been really open to feedback, so I appreciate that. And it's just about knowing where the challenges are so we can fix them and work together on those.
All right, Kate, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Kate Fensky, CEO of the Downtown Winnipeg Biz. It is now 3 minutes to 8 o'clock on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, the app, YouTube. Thursday, we're almost done with February. Today, we're going to have minus 15. That's what it is right now. Winds are calm. Sky looks pretty good out there, partly cloudy. And a high of minus 4 in the forecast today. It's going to feel more like minus 15, though. Our temperature is actually going to do a little dipsy-doodle. It's going to rise overnight to minus 2, and then it's going to dip tomorrow afternoon and fall to minus 14. So it's a strange overnight that's warmer than daytime tomorrow. In Brandon, mostly cloudy, minus 8. That's where you've been all morning. And Thompson's been stuck at minus 32 all morning, and it's cloudy up north and cold. In the next hour of Information Radio after 8 o'clock, we hope you stay with us because we will be talking about speed limits. It is a big topic of conversation in this city, and now the city of Winnipeg is again saying they want to reduce speed limits by 10 kilometers per hour on some of the streets. Will it actually make streets safer? There is some data to suggest that every 10K does in fact help with vulnerability on the road. We're going to hear from an advocate. We're going to hear from some folks on the roadways. And if you want to weigh in, we can get some of your calls on after 8 as well. So do you think that we should just do this and drop speed limits to 10 kilometers per hour? You can look at our website for the story and weigh in at 788-3205. Heather Wells is here with other stories and headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, some cycling advocates are furious with a plan to scrap temporary bike lanes on Wellington Crescent in favor of permanent ones. Councillor Janice Luke says a new city report shows temporary approach would only slightly improve safety, but Luke admits permanent bike lanes on Wellington won't be ready for more than a year. And a Winnipeg developer is suing Peguis First Nation for defamation. Andrew Marquis is seeking damages for comments Peguis' lawyer made to media. The lawyer telling CBC last year a land deal between the First Nation and the developer was unfair. We'll hear more about that in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
World Report is next. That's the latest in national and international news on CBC. Stay with us. It's 1 minute now to 8 o'clock on your Thursday.
On Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey, in for Tom Power. Candy Staton has been a gospel prodigy, a Southern soul powerhouse, and a disco icon. Now, at 85, she's back with her Grammy-nominated album, Back to My Roots. She'll be here to talk about faith, resilience, and still singing after 7 decades.
Hang on in there, brother.
Q. This morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. In half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Pop culture seems to be embracing smoking cigarettes again. Charlie XCX, Jeremy Allen White, just some of the celebrities who were photographed openly smoking recently. Is smoking cool again? What exactly would that mean for smoking rates going forward? We'll talk about that coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Hillary Clinton is being questioned under oath today in Chappaqua, New York. It's a closed-door deposition about her knowledge of the Jeffrey Epstein network after a bipartisan push to compel her testimony. For the latest on the hearing, we turn to Willie Lowry in Washington. Willie, the Clintons have been very vocal lately about wanting this to be a public hearing. Why is the committee insisting on a private, transcribed deposition instead of the open cameras the Clintons were asking for?
Yeah, Representative James Comer, who chairs the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, has been pretty clear from the beginning that the deposition process takes place behind closed doors and that the committee will publish video testimony only after the hearing concludes. That did not sit well with the Clintons, who campaigned for weeks to make the whole process public. Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and First Lady, said on social media earlier this month, quote, "Let's stop the games. If you want this fight, Rep. James Comer, let's have it in public. You love to talk about transparency. There's nothing more transparent than a public hearing, cameras on." The Clintons had hoped to avoid testifying, but were compelled after Congress threatened to hold them in contempt.
Okay, Willie, that's the background. What do we know about the focus of today's questioning?
On the surface, the committee's goal is to uncover information about Jeffrey Epstein's network. Former President Bill Clinton is mentioned thousands of times in the Epstein files, including photos of him on Epstein's private plane with an unidentified woman sitting on his lap and another of him relaxing in a pool with another unidentified person near him. The Clintons have denied any wrongdoing and are not accused of any, but both Republicans and Democrats want answers.
I'm going to be asking them names. From the beginning, we've been asking them for names of people that engaged in the trafficking and the assault of minors.
I want to hear if he has any information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his associates, about co-conspirators, and certainly if he's familiar with any of the sort of how Jeffrey Epstein was able to accumulate so much wealth.
That was Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna and Democratic Representative Robert Garcia. Hillary Clinton testifies today, Bill Clinton tomorrow.
Willie Lowry, DNR Washington Bureau. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
Iran and the United States are deep in another round of negotiations in Geneva, and the stakes are high. In his State of the Union address on Tuesday, Trump did not rule out an attack on Iran. The U.S. has been deploying guided missiles, fighter jets, and combat vessels to the Middle East. But today, Iran's foreign minister is signaling his country is open to diplomacy. And President Masoud Pezeshkian says that Tehran has already committed to one demand. Says both he and the Ayatollah are clear. Iran will not have nuclear weapons at all. But Tehran is signaling it will not give up its right to peaceful nuclear technology. Cuba says it's killed 4 people aboard a Florida-registered speedboat in what it calls an attempted terrorist infiltration. Officials in Havana say the group opened fire on Cuban soldiers first. Now Washington is conducting its own investigation into the deadly encounter. For more on the U.S. response, we go to Kate Fisher in Washington. Kate, what do we know about the people aboard this vessel?
Well, Cuba has said, and this is where we're getting most of our information from right now, that the speedboat was registered in Florida, but that it was carrying 10 armed individuals who they believe from preliminary statements intended to carry out an infiltration for terrorist purposes. This is from the Cuban Interior Ministry. They said on the boat they found assault rifles, handguns, improvised explosive devices, bulletproof vests, and camouflage gear. So essentially they're saying that these were Cuban nationals living in the United States who were trying to infiltrate the Cuban mainland, and that 4 of them were killed, 6 were wounded, and that they were being treated for their wounds in Cuba. And here is what Secretary of State from the United States, Marco Rubio, had to say.
I have every reason to want our own information. Like, we don't generally make decisions in the United States on the basis of what the Cuban authorities are saying.
And Kate, all this happening against the backdrop of increased tensions between Cuba and the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just had the United States go into Venezuela and capture Nicolas Maduro, the leader of that country. After that happened, Donald Trump said, that he believes that now the Cuban regime could fall, and has even suggested that Cuba could be next. This really could potentially ignite a further diplomatic crisis between the US and Cuba, who already have highly strained relations.
Kate Fisher in Washington. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is leaving for his trip to India today. He's hoping to hammer out new trade deals that will help diversify Canada's economy. The trip comes after years of choppy relations between the two countries. While officials on both sides are optimistic about a new trade relationship, some in Canada are questioning this reset. JP Tasker reports.
Given what had happened in the last 2 years, this is a big reset.
India's High Commissioner to Canada, Dinesh Patnaik, says the two countries are turning the page on an era of bilateral bad blood. Past allegations that Indian agents were involved in the murder of a Canadian Sikh are being put aside as Prime Minister Mark Carney pursues a free trade agreement with the world's most populous country.
I am confident that given the intent on both sides, both Prime Ministers are very keen to do it.
Patnaik says a comprehensive economic agreement could come together quickly, with Carney getting some valuable face time with his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, on this 5-day visit.
We are looking at 1 year, but I have a feeling it will be faster.
Some Sikh activists, meanwhile, are raising red flags about normalizing relations. BC Sikh leader Moninder Singh was warned by police last weekend he faces a credible threat to his life, and he suspects it comes from Indian agents.
I think in the wake of all that, we're going to India to reward them with trade deals. I think nothing could be a bigger slap in the face of the people that are under risk.
Still, federal officials say India is a hugely attractive market for Canadian companies and a key piece to the puzzle as the country tries to urgently diversify trade away from the U.S. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Alberta's provincial government is tabling its budget today. The oil-rich province posted a deficit last year, the first one since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And Premier Danielle Smith is signaling some tough decisions will have to be made again this year.
Alberta, like other jurisdictions in Canada and around the world, has been facing challenges ranging from trade disruptions to supply chain issues to volatile commodities markets. This year, we're dealing with a significant deficit resulting from the twin pressures of low energy prices and near record high population growth.
But Smith is promising greater investment in some sectors. Yesterday, she announced more than $10 billion for education funding and a 22% increase in funding for doctors' pay. New data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information shows a worrying trend in long-term care homes. On average, 1 in 4 residents is being given strong sedative drugs without a psychological diagnosis. Health advocates say it is a persistent problem that needs immediate intervention. The CBC's Tashana Reid has the story.
The numbers haven't been trending the right way.
Andrea Fobel is a research manager with the Canadian Institute for Health Information in Ottawa. Their latest report says 24% of long-term care residents in Canada received an antipsychotic medication without a psychological diagnosis.
So often we turn to those antipsychotics far too quickly.
It's an issue Roslyn Compton has seen in Saskatoon. She's the executive director of Better LTC, a nonprofit that supports seniors.
And often it's because either not enough staff, not enough one-on-one.
Antipsychotic medications for disorders like schizophrenia are sometimes used to address symptoms like aggression in patients with dementia. But there are risks.
Increased risk of falls, increased risk of fractures, increase in frailty because they're not up and moving around.
In 2024 to 2025, provincial rates of potentially inappropriate use of antipsychotics was high, ranging from 20% to 36% in some provinces. Last year, the Appropriate Use Coalition, a group of Canadian health organizations, set a national target for long-term care homes of 15% or less.
It just shows that this is a persistent problem, and I'm glad that
Dr. Samir Sinha is a geriatrician at Sinai Health in Toronto.
And it represents a lot more work that we need to be doing to make sure that we're appropriately prescribing.
Health experts say reviewing medications every 3 months and specialized care to manage behaviors can make a difference. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown with the show in our CBC studios. Warmer in the south, colder up north, and Thursday. Those are the facts, folks, as we click through these last few days of February. One of the other things that we are looking at is the city of Winnipeg saying they want to reduce speed limits by 10 kilometers per hour on some streets. Will the streets safer? We're going to hear what one advocate has to say. Also, we mentioned this story was coming up. We already got a call on the listener line about it, so we'll get that call on as well. And Jim Agapito went to the street to find out your thoughts on this. This has been looked at in Winnipeg for many years on different routes, and there is data from Vision Zero, which is a strategy to try to eliminate fatalities on streets all across the country. But it started really Vision Zero in the 90s in Sweden. And so we have some of that data to share as well. So we're going to talk all about speed limit reduction. 788-3205 if you want to weigh in as well in that conversation this half hour. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells with updates on other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg doctor wishes the province was doing more to warn people about a growing outbreak of hepatitis A. Dr. Glenn Drobot is an internal medicine specialist. He saw only a handful of cases of Hep A in the past 20 years, but he's seen 4 more in just the past 2 months and was surprised to learn there have been more than 300 cases of Hep A across the province. We'll hear from him coming up as well. A Winnipeg developer is suing Peguis First Nation for defamation. Andrew Marquis seeking damages for comments Peguis' lawyer made to media. I'll be back with details on that story as well in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby has the forecast.
Yeah, we have a morning contrast this morning as we're seeing more like sunny conditions already in the southern part of the province, while frigid Arctic air grips the northern part of the province. Winnipeg right now, we're hovering around minus 19 at the airport and tracking minus 13 within the city limits under some clear conditions and the sunshine out there. We will hover around minus 9 degrees for most of the day, even close to your rush hour period. That's when we get to hit a high of minus 4 later in the evening with light winds, but keep an eye out for freezing drizzle that may come on and off. Across the southern regions, we're tracking minus 10s and minus 15s with lights, sunny skies, by the way. And then up north, we're looking at minus 30s in the Thompson and Churchill region, expecting periods of snow today. And the wind chill up north feels close to minus 40 this morning, so take that into consideration. There's a risk of frostbite. But for Winnipeg right now, we're tracking minus 13 at the Forks and minus 19 at the airport under some sunny conditions.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, what do we know about the commute today?
Yes, a few things developing here in the city. I want to get to that first before we talk about a listener line that's coming up. So Portage and Sturgeon Road, collision, eastbound Portage in the curb lane. So keep left to get around that. As well, northbound Lajimodia approaching Sage Creek. There's a stall blocking the northbound median lane, so keep right there. And northbound Archibald, just past Tlingit, there's a stall blocking that northbound curb lane on Archibald. Keep left. Also a reminder today, Mission both ways between Archibald and McTavish closed for construction until 7 p.m. And also another reminder to folks that just at 7 a.m. today, the residential parking ban started, so those plows can come through. And that runs until Saturday at 7 p.m. So check the Know Your Zone app. That's going to be changing, obviously, day by day about what zones they're going to be plowing where you can't park. So go to Know Your Zone app to see how that impacts you. But you can call me 204-788-3093.
Now, I think I screwed you up. Sorry, you were going to go to listener line first probably, okay. And then you ended up doing traffic first because I led you there.
Lots going on.
The listener line actually came in. We're going to have a full half hour talking about this, but this came in organically, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we heard that we were talking about the proposal to reduce from 50 to 40 on residential streets. So here's a call that we got from a listener.
Hi there. My name is Lucianne. I'm calling regarding the decrease in the speed limits. I do have a problem with people speeding on the streets. I think it's dangerous. However, decreasing it another 10 kilometers isn't going to make a difference if there isn't enforcement. Currently, I live on a street that's 50K. During the winter and during the summer months, it's lowered to 30. The people who are going 70 kilometers an hour in the morning are the same people that goes 70 regardless of whether it's a 50-kilometer-an-hour zone or a 30-kilometer-an-hour zone. So if we really want to change behavior, we need to provide some fines for this inappropriate behavior that is dangerous.
So that's a call we got live this morning from one of our listeners who heard this conversation was coming up. This is the City of Winnipeg's Public Service recommending the lowering the default speed limit on some streets, as Corey mentioned, from 50 to 40. Now, before anything happens here, the city will need the province to sign off and then give them the green light for this change. But we want to look at the bigger picture and widen out for a second. This idea comes from a pilot project that started in March of 2023, 3 years ago, to have safer streets. CBC's Jim Agapito went to find out what Winnipeggers think about the potential shift now.
Patrick Lemedek.
And yours? Suzanne Lemedek.
I think that things are fine the way they are, so I'd keep it to 50. If it slows down everything, we already have a lot of bottlenecking, so, that would just add to it, I think.
I agree, because 50 right now is quite reasonably low. And when you are in those school zones, you're actually crawling. So another 10. I know it's safety issues, but I think 50, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in the 50 zone, you're still being safe.
My name is Cheryl Perceviat Gaines. I think on the main streets, I think that would slow traffic down too much. I think on the residential streets where there's more houses and kids playing, I think 40 would be appropriate.
William Caithness. I think that's a really good idea.
Why do you say that?
I find there's a lot of distracted drivers. There's a lot of bad drivers out there, to be honest, hey? It seems to be like, I'm 69, it seems to me like it's getting worse. So,
Michael Sanyak. Well, it would have some positive impacts and some negative. Well, the good thing is less people getting hurt, of course, I would think. And say a bad thing about it, well, maybe more traffic.
Do you feel that speeding is an issue where you live residentially?
Not on the residential streets, no, but on the main street, like St. Mary's, I do find that that's an issue.
Well, I drive around a lot. Like I'm retired, but I work at a part-time liquor mart, but I do a lot of activities, and I'm driving over the city with my wife, and I see a lot of bad drivers, a lot of drivers speeding. It's just something that has to be addressed, and you see a lot of cars that have like broken fenders or damaged from accidents.
We live in a very residential area where there's a lot of schools, daycares, and everything. And we've been there for the last 4 years where our children grew up, and we always felt safe with residential speeds being at 50. So I'm not sure 40 would change much. That's just my personal issue.
So just to reiterate then, you don't feel that speeding has ever been an issue in your residential area?
No.
No, and I think a lot of people, especially when they see it's a school zone or a residential area, they will respect that. Of course, there's always that idiot that might speed, but I'm not sure if he sees 40 is going to make him slow down either. So that's all I'm saying.
I think it's a balance between keeping traffic moving and keeping people safe.
So those are some of the comments on different sides of the issues, or I should just say a number of sides of the issues, from CBC's Jim Agapito talking to people yesterday in Winnipeg about lowering the default speed limit from 50k to 40 kilometers per hour on some streets in Winnipeg. Now, someone who's in favor of changing this is Natalie Kleinschmidt. She's been listening in as well. She's on Zoom. She's an advocate for lowering the speed on Wellington Crescent specifically, but she's also the creator of WinnipegPledge.ca, and she's with us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcia.
So let's get to what you heard there about folks that say they don't think it's necessary, that 50 is still safe. I was writing down as I was listening that things are bottlenecked already, and that if you're a good driver, you're paying attention anyway. And we already have school zones down to 30. So people that say this is maybe not necessary here, what's your reaction to that?
I think what really struck me was how everybody was using words like, it feels slow, it seems slow. I'm not sure, would it make a difference? It's really important to go to the facts. When we when somebody drives at 60 and hits a pedestrian, there's zero chance of them surviving. When they drive at 50, only 2 out of 10 will survive. So from 50 to 40, it's 6 out of 10. And the case, I'm actually for 30, which is a complete mind shift, I know. But the case for survival is 9 out of 10. Now, those are statistics, but what does it mean for people? Well, if you're walking your dog and you're living in the moment, there's a comfort level. You trade the speed for comfort. So you're walking your dog and you cross at a pedestrian and a car is barreling down and maybe starts to slide on the ice in the winter or is just not paying attention. That happens. I live downtown, so cars are going 50 and sometimes faster down the streets, or kids are running around. It's really stressful, and I think it's important to look at the statistics and also think about what sort of city we want to live in. Do we want to live in a city where where streets are a place, where people are maybe outside on terraces, where kids can play in the rest, or are the streets just there to get us from point A to point B? It's rethinking, and I think bringing the speed down is a way of just bringing some comfort and taking some of the stress out.
That what you just said there about if a person is hit at 60, there's zero chance for survival. I mean, those stats are quite definitive. Where are those coming from?
Those are coming, if you go on Winnipeg, winnipegpledge.ca, you'll see a lot of it is from the Vision Zero, and you'll see that the research is there with all of the sources and all of the links for people who are interested. And it's kind of interesting because for Winnipeg, it's been almost a combat against between the cyclist and those who are in cars. And I felt it was important to be there as a car driver to say, hey, like, I'm for safety too, and this shouldn't be a polarizing issue. And that's sort of what compelled me. And the more I read and saw those statistics, I made a real commitment, because the thing is, if the speed's at 40, people are going to speed. If they edge up to 50, they're not going to. It doesn't feel serious. But if the speed's at 30, you're not going to be driving at 50 or 60. It's a switch. It's going to take a culture change, in fact.
I was looking at Vision Zero stats as well. I don't have the exact ones that you had to verify myself, but similar ones. So Vision Zero, in case people don't know, this is a strategy to have zero fatalities, a goal for those that are vulnerable on the road in traffic. And some of their stats about speed do say, this started overseas, it's spread here, it's across the country now, but they do say that at 30 kilometers per hour, there's a 10% likelihood of a fatality for a vulnerable user. At 40, it is 30%, and at 50, there's an 85% likelihood of a fatality for a vulnerable road user. So that it goes up from there. You've said twice now that should your goal happen in Winnipeg, going down to 30 kilometers per hour, it will be a complete mindset change. Is that too slow? Because if the mindset is that and the reality is that the way the city is built is we have suburbs. We do have people coming in and out of the city. Whether we like that kind of design of a city or not, that's what we have. People will need to be in their cars. That is not going to change anytime soon. So what's your thought on that we might talk about the safety for pedestrians, but we have a car city, so is 30 too slow?
Well, last night I went to the conference Changing Lanes, where they brought in the speaker, Todd Littman from Victoria Transport Institute and Policy. And it was really interesting to listen to him. And he described futures of city, if we could imagine them, and Winnipeg would be a perfect candidate, as urban villages. That Winnipeg, instead of seeing it sort of this metropolis with suburbs, of seeing it as villages, and that streets were no longer just a means of traveling, but streets actually were a place. And as soon as you think of streets as a place, and he showed sort of a progression between sort of that street we see with the big box store and maybe a couple buildings, and it's really impersonal, and then building around that in the landscaping and the bike lanes and the pedestrians and bringing the cafes on the sidewalks and the rest first. it's good for taxes for the city, builds up the density, but it creates really human spaces. And I think that's the argument. It's trading that idea of we have to drive quickly to we drive to get somewhere, but we recognize as we drive through a neighborhood or we drive towards a place that we're in a space where people are living and acknowledging that.
What's it like for you? You mentioned you live in the downtown neighborhood. How fast might a driver go? Or what, how often might you have felt unsafe? If you could give us an example of what it's like.
I walk my dog every day. Like a lot of people in cars have dogs and they walk them. And we have a lot of back lanes. I'm just south of Broadway in that neighborhood. And the back lanes, people use the back lanes to kind of get away from Broadway sometimes. And they're barreling down the back lanes at 40, 50. When you are walking a dog or when people are walking, I've seen near misses and I've seen a lot of car collisions and there's debris around. I've seen with the snow drifts and things, the visibility isn't great or people are coming off a sidewalk. I've seen a lot of near misses. We have a lot of cars that are, I don't want to blame them or shame them, but the delivery services, the Lyfts and the Ubers, and they're, especially delivery services, they're going so quickly. And like, you just would say, hey, slow down. Like, dude, you're gonna run over there. A lot of kids in this neighborhood and a lot of people, they cross the street because they're walking the dog. And those cars go frighteningly quickly. And even though it's downtown, it's still a residential area. Mm-hmm. People are still walking around.
Just last, Natalie, how optimistic are you that this proposal will go through? I know your goal is 30, but from 50 to 40.
Well, 40 would be a no-brainer because right away we're tripling the survival rate. And I just checked, it's the World Health Organization is actually the source. And if there are discrepancies, is those statistics I quoted were from 2009. So of course, with cars being bigger and more powerful, there's higher rates of mortality today. I think there's a chance. I need to tell you, Marcia, I used to live in Paris. And Paris is used often as an example of a city that changed. And I was there and I was a driver in Paris when they decided to take the Champs-Élysées from 6 lanes down to 2, build those wide sidewalks where they slowed the speed everywhere. They cut out, put in bike lanes and the rest. And it was a revolution. People didn't want it. And what triggered it was also the climate and the smog and the rest. But today people wouldn't go back. And it took leadership with a vision to see the bigger picture. It's not just about you in your car. And I mean, how many times do you see somebody speed by and then you meet them at the traffic light?
It takes doing it and then moving it forward to appreciate the benefit. In the case of Paris,
we need strong leadership. Yeah, and Paris, it's the highlight now when you go to Paris. It's a walkable city. It's people are on bikes and.
Thank you for weighing in. You can hear I'm moving on, and I'll tell you why, because people have been calling since we've been talking. Good. So I'm going to go to the phone lines, Natalie. Yeah, I really appreciate you weighing in with your perspective.
Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing it up. It's really important.
Mm-hmm. Natalie Kleinschmidt live with us, advocate for speed change on Wellington, the creator of WinnipegPledge.ca, but in support of having all of Winnipeg really go down to 30 kilometers per hour. The city is looking at going from 50 to 40. Here's a call we got.
Carol Dubois. I would not like to see the speed limits changed. I think that money could be better used for education purposes. I think the drivers on the road these days are not following the rules of the road like we once were. People aren't signaling. People aren't necessarily letting people in when they want to switch lanes. I think there just needs to be better education all around. Thank you.
All right. All opinions welcome. 788-3205. Right now, a traffic alert. Pembina Osborne stalled car eastbound median lanes blocked. 788-3093. Before the news, we're going to switch gears entirely because Marjorie Dowhouse is here with a provocative question for your call-in today.
Yes, we're asking you if you believe in aliens, if you believe that there is life out there on other planets. And we're asking this because recently U.S. President Donald Trump said that he is asking his government to release all information that they have on aliens and UFOs. And this follows a comment that former President Barack Obama had mentioned about how he believed that aliens existed. So we want to hear from you. Chris Witkowski is our guest on Radio Noon today. So we want to hear from you. Do you believe in aliens? Give us a call after 12:30.
It's going to be a really interesting conversation. There's also a documentary that was just released about some of the departments that, the people worked in the States. That my husband and I are watching part of it. But it was missing some of those documents. So if Trump releases everything, it'll be a different conversation in some ways.
Yeah.
All right, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
Between 12:30 and 1. I wish I had the music from one of those shows. Ooh. All right. It is time for the CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's minus 13. We're warming up today, a high of minus 4, but we chill out again by the weekend. A Winnipeg doctor wishes the province was doing more to warn people about a growing outbreak of hepatitis A. Dr. Glenn Drobot is an internal medicine specialist. He saw only a handful of cases of Hep A in the past 20 years, but he's seen 4 more in just the past 2 months. And Drobot says he was surprised to learn there have been more than 300 cases of hepatitis A across the province.
As a frontline physician, I just haven't seen a lot of information about this. I was surprised when I heard about this in the late fall last year, and I think physicians, members of the public need to know more that this is happening in our province right now.
The acute liver infection can cause nausea and jaundice. Hepatitis A can spread through food and drinking water contaminated with feces from an infected person. A spokesperson tells CBC the province is working to keep people informed about prevention and response measures, including contact tracing and immunization. Some cycling advocates are furious about a plan to scrap temporary bike lanes on Wellington Crescent in favor of permanent ones. Councillor Janice Luke says a new city report shows the temporary approach would only slightly improve safety. Lucky Adams was among a handful of protesters at City Hall with a banner reading, "Whose kid is next?"
She's making a promise that it'll come next year by breaking a promise that she already made that it was coming this spring. We can't trust her when she says it's going to come next year and it's going to be permanent and it's going to be great. They've had a plan for well over a year of what the temporary bike lane project would look like, and now they're canceling it.
Adams says the plastic posts and paint for the temporary lanes would help Winnipeggers visualize how they would like the permanent structure to look. Winnipeg Transit is proposing changes to 3 downtown bus routes. The plan is to revise the D16, D18, and D19 routes starting in June. Transit's goal is to make it easier for people to get downtown and to bring buses closer to Graham Avenue and the Winnipeg Clinic. Nolan Day takes transit to get to the University of Winnipeg.
It takes longer and it takes more buses for me to get home now, so it turned from like a 20-minute bus ride to about 40 to an hour at times, and I'm spending more time in the cold.
The proposal still has to be approved by the Public Works Committee. A new city plan could force drivers to ease up on the gas in Winnipeg's residential areas. City Councillor Janice Luke supports the idea to reduce the default speed limit from 50 kilometers an hour to 40. That plan could also affect some collector streets. Luke says she gets constant calls for traffic calming in densely populated neighborhoods.
Just from the calls I continually get just in my ward alone and what I see coming through the Public Works Committee, there is an appetite to slow the speed down.
The idea will stall, though, without approval from the province. Before any speed limit can be lowered, the government will have to approve a change to the Highway Traffic Act. A Winnipeg developer is suing Peguis First Nation for defamation. Andrew Marquis is seeking damages for comments Peguis's lawyer made to media. CBC's Caitlin Garlick reports.
Peguis's lawyer told CBC last year a land deal between the First Nation and a developer was unfair. Now, developer Andrew Marquis is suing the First Nation for that and other comments, which Marquis says were untrue and defamatory. The deal involved the former Meadows Golf Course in the RM of East St. Paul, which the Peguis First Nation Real Estate Trust acquired in 2021, paid for in part with a $5.5 million loan from a company court documents say was owned by Marquis's wife. When Pegwis defaulted on that loan, it sold 75% of its units in the land to Marquis. Marquis's lawsuit says in exchange he assumed the debt and agreed to pay $10 million. Marquis's lawyer said he had no comment on the lawsuit. Pegwis and its lawyer didn't respond. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And Prime Minister Mark Carney is about to board a government jet to open a 10-day trip abroad. Carney will visit India, Australia, and Japan. It is his first trip overseas since his headline-making speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he called for middle powers to band together. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
While we're on the subject of thank yous, I want to thank Heather Wells, Megan Ketcherson, and Aaron Broman in our news department this morning, as well as reporter Jim Agapito and associate producers Jura McElraith, Sierra Sanders, and Sophia Peralta Barone for their work on the show today. As I think I mentioned Jim Agapito. Also, Corey Funk, Gabby Adiemi, Darren Mirage, the Dream Crew in Studio 15's control room, and our producers, Nellie Gonzalez, the show's producer in CA Current Affairs, and Leif Larson, the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Corey's back with one last look at your drive. Yep. Rock and roll.
Southbound Logan and Keewatin, there's a collision in the curb lane, and that's obviously blocked. And all eastbound and westbound lanes are blocked as well. So you want to reroute, maybe avoid that area if you can. The stall in Pembina and Osborne is now cleared, but Lajimode approaching Sage Creek, there's a stall blocking the median lane. Archibald just past Plingett northbound, a stall blocking the curb lane there as well. Residential parking ban started today at 7, runs till 7 p.m. on Saturday.
All right, drive, walk, and roll. I think I actually, did I do it right finally? No, walk. Yeah, drive, walk, and
I don't even know what you're trying to do.
I don't know what I shouldn't be trying to do anything. You might be rocking your commute, so that's fine. Abby, final look at the weather.
Down south, we're looking at -6 to -15s now. Highs near 0 degrees, and up north, we're seeing temperatures getting the wind chill close to -42 in the northern part of the province. Winnipeg will warm up to -4 later today.
All right, thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everybody, to the Thursday edition of Information Radio. By the way, CBC just confirming from a government spokesperson, Budget Day in Manitoba will be March 24th. Stay tuned. The Current's coming up next.